Chapter 4786. Yu Er's figure was merely that of a 5 or 6 years old child, so against an adult woman, her figure was at a disadvantage. Therefore, when that sharp sword was chopping down towards her, the strength of the other party also pressed down. Even though Yu Er was tightly holding her dagger to block, but she was also gradually pressed down. And also at this time, the gaze of Nangong Yiyin swept past her arm, and suddenly the sword in her hand turned and slashed towards her arm. Xiao, at an extremely fast speed, the sword slashed across the arm of Yu Er. In that instant, a sword mark appeared on her sleeve, and a slanted sword mark also appeared on her tender little arm. At the same time, blood seeped out from her arm, and Nangong Yiyin couldn't help but smile. "You are out." This sword of hers had nearly slashed her entire arm, so naturally, it had also slashed the petal on the inner side of her arm. Now that the transfer petal was destroyed, and at the same time blood seeped out, she would naturally be transferred out. Who would have thought that just when her voice fell, just when she was smiling, Yu endured the pain in her arm and revealed a fox-like crafty smile? That may not be so. Taking advantage of the moment when she was complacent, Nangong Yiyin's dagger pressed against her sword, and when the dagger neared her hand, the dagger suddenly turned, and the sharp dagger directly slashed that transfer petal on the inner side of her arm. You! Nangong Yiyin screamed because of the pain and angrily glared at the little girl in front of her. But she was startled by the thing that had fallen on the ground. Chong! A gold coin with golden radiance fell on the stone on the ground, giving out a sharp and clear sound. And at the same time seeing that gold coin, Nangong Yiyin was startled and firmly stared at that bleeding arm of the little girl in front of her. Her sword had slashed across her arm, but the area where the flower petal had not been injured by the sword. The fallen gold coin had protected the flower petal, so the flower petal was still on her arm, unharmed. How can this? Before she could finish her sentence, the petals on her arm were cut open, and she was instantly teleported away along with the petals. Only her unfinished words were left echoing in the air. Outside the mirror, everyone who saw this scene was speechless for a long time. They couldn't hide the shock and astonishment in their hearts. They never thought that the little baby would actually protect the petal with a gold coin, and that the gold coin would also block the wound caused by the sword. After a while, they looked at Emperor Qing, who was looking at the image in the mirror, and couldn't help but mutter in their hearts, "Emperor Qing is a monster, and his 3 disciples are also more abnormal than the other. I'm really convinced. The 3 people on the other side are really convinced." A young man sitting behind their master said. His eyes were filled with admiration and amazement as he looked at the little girl in the mirror. How could she be so powerful? Why would she think of using gold coins to protect that petal? If we had thought of this earlier, we probably wouldn't have been eliminated so quickly. Chapter 4787. During the banquet, everyone was discussing, and it was not difficult to discover that they were full of admiration for the 3 children. After all, these people who were in their teens didn't stay in there as long as the 3 of them. After coming out, they saw the 3's ability to adapt. In this world that worshipped the strength of the strong, even if the 3 of them were still young, they were still worthy of praise and admiration. At this time, looking at the scene in the mirror, Immortal couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Looking at Emperor Qing beside him, he said, "It seems that my late master's 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip can't be kept. But I didn't expect that there would be a day when this old man actually misjudged a miscalculation, ah?" Emperor Qing glanced at him and smiled. Lightly swaying the wine cup in his hand, he took a sip of wine and said, "Didn't I give you something? Even if it's a loss, it won't be too much of a loss. What's more, you have no use for that whip inside. It's just right to give it to my disciple." Immortal smiled and didn't speak, only looking at the scene in the mirror. Even if he gave it, they must be able to take it out first. Just wait and see. In the mirror, when Zhao Ziming saw that his junior sister Nangong Yiyin was actually defeated by that little girl and was sent out, he was also startled. In this moment of distraction, he felt pain in his arm, and his heart sank. Looking down, he couldn't help but bitterly smile. Blood was seeping out of the petals on his arm, and the petals were disappearing. In the next moment, he didn't even have time to say a word before his whole person was directly sent out. How are you? Are your injuries serious? Quickly apply some medicine. After Hao, and Mu Chun dealt with Zhao Ziming, they quickly came to Yuer's side. Seeing the deep wound on her arm, they couldn't help but feel distressed. It's very painful, right? Mu Chun said as he held her hand, his little face full of worry. And it's very painful. Eldest senior brother, apply the medicine gently. I'm afraid of pain. Yuer wrinkled her little face and said with a pitiful look, All right, eldest senior brother, be gentler. Bear with it. As Hao spoke, he carefully applied medicine for her and bandaged her wound. Little junior sister, just stay here and watch. We'll get that whip for you later. Hao, said, and asked her to go to the side to rest. Yuer's arm was very painful, but at this moment she didn't try to be brave. Merely nodding her head, she said, Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, you two be a bit more careful. We know. Only then did they look at the Luan Feng that had stopped above them. In the next moment, they took a deep breath and flew towards the Luan Feng. Outside the mirror, the people watching the scene could not help but ponder. They looked at Immortal Ling Wood and asked, Immortal Ling Wood, could it be that the 9-section flame phoenix scale whip is this Luan Feng? Celestial Ling Wood smiled as he stroked his beard and looked at the crowd. He smiled and said, Everyone might not know, but this Luan Phoenix isn't a beast. It is the weapon spirit of the 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip. It has always appeared as a weapon spirit in the mirror flower water moon spirit realm. No wonder we only knew that the 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip was in the depths of the spirit realm, but no one knew where it was hidden. So that's how it is. An old immortal nodded in realization. The doubts in his heart were finally resolved. Chapter 4788. Hearing this, everyone's heart trembled. Did he mean that the 3 disciples of the Azure Arch would have to retrieve the whip in the end? Thinking of their performance inside, everyone felt that it was not impossible. Thinking of this, everyone's gaze once again turned towards the spirit realm. In the spirit realm, you saw her 2 brothers joining hands to deal with the Luan Feng. The Luan Feng flapped its wings and released flames towards the 2 of them. The 2 of them quickly dodged as they faced the attack. What they wanted to do was to make the Luan Feng submit, not take its life. Therefore, they felt somewhat restrained in the battle. Yuer saw that the 2 of them seemed to be dodging the Luan Feng and did not injure it much. On the contrary, her 2 brothers' shoulders were scratched by the Luan Feng's claws. Seeing that their shoulders were bleeding, she somewhat could not sit still. She stood up with a dagger in her hand and said, Senior brothers, let me help you. This was originally to help her obtain the whip. Seeing that they were injured, how could she continue to watch from the side? They were not willing to do it, but she was not. Since it dared to injure her brothers, she must properly teach that Luan Feng a lesson. When the 2 of them heard her voice, they turned around to take a look. They saw her gathering her chi and flying towards them. With a somersault in the air, she actually sat on the back of the Luan Feng. Be careful of getting hurt. Hao whispered, afraid that she would be injured by the flames. How dare you injure my senior brothers? See if I don't kill you. Yuer shouted. Her soft voice did not have any lethality, but as soon as she spoke, the dagger in her hand ruthlessly stabbed into the Luan Feng's body. For some unknown reason, the flames on the Luan Feng's body were extinguished when she stepped on it. Junior sister, that will kill it. Hao and Mu Chun were shocked by her ferocious attitude. The 2 of them did not expect that she would actually take advantage of the time when they were attacking the Luan Feng. Taking advantage of the fact that the Luan Feng was unprepared, she actually held the dagger in her hand and stabbed into the Luan Feng's body. At that moment, they felt an ancient pressure pervading from her body, forcibly suppressing the aura on the Luan Feng's body. Even the flames on the Luan Feng's body disappeared because of the ancient pressure. That blade had truly pierced into the body of Luan Feng. After that, Luan Feng screamed, and no one knew whether it was because it was afraid of the pressure emitted from Yuer's body at that instant, or because it was truly injured. Luanfeng unexpectedly retracted its wings and dived down from midair. With a flash of red radiance, Luanfeng changed into a whip and fell to the ground. And that whip was still stained with blood. Yura was also startled, although she had ruthlessly stabbed that dagger. But she had never thought that after stabbing, this Luanfeng would so obediently turn into a whip. Howard and Mu Chun exchanged glances when they saw this scene. They knew that this was probably more or less related to the ancient pressure that their younger sister had released earlier. However, that pressure had come and gone extremely quickly, so it shouldn't have been noticed by others. Chapter 4789. The handle of the whip was the head of a Luanfeng. The entire whip was a fiery red color, and there were 9 sections on it. Holding in her hand, she could feel a trace of heat coming from the whip. Put away first. Let's go out, so that master won't be worried. How? Said, and asked her to put the whip away. Okay. Yura smiled sweetly and happily. She put the whip away in her space and cut the petals on the inner side of her arm with them. In the next moment, a light enveloped them and instantly transported them out. Outside the mirror, at the banquet, everyone looked at each other in dismay when they saw the scene in the mirror. No one had expected that they would obtain the 9-section flame phoenix scale whip like this. Moreover, the person who obtained it was a 5 or 6-year-old little girl. It could only be said that their feelings were complicated. When the 3 of them came out of the mirror and saw that their injuries had all healed, they couldn't help but smile. Then, they quickly walked forward. When they arrived at the banquet, Yu-Er's voice had already entered Emperor Qing's ears before she even arrived. Master, I got the whip. She ran over and took out the whip from her space as if she was presenting a treasure to her master. She happily said, Master, look, this is the whip. It was transformed from a Luanfeng. Master, our and Mu Qin also came in front of Emperor Qing and respectfully bowed to him. And have a seat. Emperor Qing gestured with a satisfied smile and let them sit down. Yes. The 2 of them answered and walked behind him and sat down. Emperor Qing picked up the whip and looked at it. Then he looked at Immortal Lingmu and said, Immortal Lingmu, this whip has been obtained by my little disciple. Immortal Lingmu smiled bitterly and said, Yes, I really didn't expect this. He took out an ancient book from his space and looked at the little girl. He waved his hand and called out, Little girl Yanqi, come here, come here. Yura looked at her master and saw that he nodded his head. Then she came in front of Immortal Lingmu and respectfully bowed. She called out, Immortal Lingmu, truly an amazing child. From today onwards, that whip is yours. Also, this whip technique book is also given to you. Take it back and cultivate properly. Immortal Lingmu smiled and handed the book to her. Then, he lightly patted her head. Yes, thank you, Immortal Lingmu. Yura happily smiled and received the book with both hands. Then, she ran back to her master's side. Emperor Qing's Immortal Lingmu and said. Then, he handed the whip in front of Yura. He said, Bind it. Hearing what was said, Yura bit her finger and dripped a drop of blood on that whip. After that, the body of that whip flashed with radiance, as if a wisp of red flame quickly streaked across it. Take it. Emperor Qing placed the whip in her hand and said, This whip can change at will. It can be long or short. It can turn into a dagger or a soft sword. It can even turn into a red silk. In the future, you have to cultivate properly. This treasure can become an extremely powerful weapon in battle. Yes, disciple will remember. Yura happily replied. She took the whip and wrapped it around her waist. Chapter 4790. Today we have broadened our horizons. Emperor Qing's 3 beloved disciples are truly outstanding. Dragons and phoenixes among men, Another immortal said with a smile, and his gaze landed on the 3 children, full of fondness. Such good seedlings. How come they didn't encounter them? Everyone congratulated one by one, and a string of praises came out from their mouth. Hearing this, Emperor Qing also smiled and felt happy in his heart. He looked towards Zi, an immortal monarch who had ugly complexion, and said, Zinan, immortal monarch, seems to have not given the thing that you lost to this emperor. Hearing this, Z, an immortal monarch's mouth pulled up, revealing a stiff smile. He glanced at Emperor Qing, then took out a golden silk soft armor that was emitting purple gold radiance from his space. And with a move of his hand, the thing in his hand flew up and landed in front of Emperor Qing. Emperor Qing, keep it properly. This is purple sun golden silk soft armor. Seeing his own treasure changed owner like this, his heart was in pain. Emperor Qing's lips slightly curled up, then looking at the golden silk soft armor in front of him, he said to Yu, "Little Qi, this is what you won. Take it." Hearing this, Yu was startled and somewhat didn't understand. Then blinking her beautiful eyes, she curiously asked, "Master, how come Disciple won it? Disciple didn't do anything, ah." "Ha ha." Emperor Qing softly laughed, then looking at Z, an immortal monarch whose complexion was ugly and pained, he said, "Didn't you kill that huge python?" Z, an immortal monarch, made a bet with Master, and the result was that you lost this treasure. He smiled, and, as if unintentionally, he stretched out his hand and stroked this golden silk soft armor that was emitting purple gold radiance, then casually said, "This thing is one of the rare treasures of Z, an immortal monarch. Wearing it on the body is a life-saving treasure. Moreover, it is also helpful for cultivation. Its degree of preciousness, even Z, an immortal monarch himself, is reluctant to wear it. Today, you're really lucky, little girl." Hearing this, Yu's eyes shone. Then revealing a crafty smile, she bowed towards Z, an immortal monarch, then crisply said, "So it is this kind of treasure. Many thanks, Z, an immortal monarch." The corners of Z, an immortal monarch's mouth twitched when he heard the words of the Master and Disciple. He revealed a stiff smile. "You are the capable one. If this little girl hadn't really killed that giant python herself, how could he have lost that treasure?" Now, there was no point in saying anything more. Yu turned around, looked toward her master, and asked, "Master, can Disciple give this treasure to eldest senior brother?" "Of course." The Azure Emperor smiled and nodded. Howard was slightly taken aback. He stood up and said, "Master, I also have a protective soft armor. Let's give this to junior sister." "Eldest senior brother, Master said that this is a good treasure. Just accept it. Wearing it could even help one's cultivation. Hereafter, when you become even more powerful, you will be able to protect us even better." Yu said with a beaming smile, then picked up that soft armor and placed it in his hand. "Since your junior sister has said so, just accept it," Emperor Qing said. Seeing this, Howard nodded his head, "Yes." Turning to look at Yu, he revealed a gentle smile. "Many thanks, junior sister." Chapter 4791. "All right," Muchin replied with a smile. He was not angry that his sister gave the soft armor to his elder brother, because he was their elder brother. They would naturally want to share good things with him. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned and a little surprised. After all, that was a rare treasure. The little girl gave it to her eldest senior brother just like that. It really surprised them. What was even more surprising was that the little girl actually said that she would snatch a good treasure and give it to her second senior brother next time. Just hearing this made their hearts tighten. Did they have any treasures that others coveted? After confirming that there was none, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If there really was a treasure that caught their eye, it would be hard to say if they could keep it. "Haha, I think everyone is tired. Why don't you go to the rooms and rest first?" Immortal Ling Mu said with a smile, and instructed the immortal servants to bring everyone to the guest rooms to rest. Yu had obtained the whip and the whip technique book and wanted to go back and study it. When she heard her master stand up, she immediately prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, the Qing Emperor glanced at the three of them and said, "Follow the immortal servants to the guest rooms to rest. Master and Immortal Ling Mu will play 2 games of chess." "Yes." The three of them replied and left with the immortal servants. In the other corner of the sky, the strange phenomenon continued. In the sky, celestial music reverberated, a rainbow stretched across the sky, cranes flew, magpies chirped, and 7-colored auspicious clouds floated. In the midst of this auspicious phenomenon, A celestial island rose from below and floated in the sky amidst a stretch of holy light. An exquisite and magnificent celestial palace was naturally built in the holy light. On the celestial island, hundreds of flowers bloomed, and spirit trees bore fruit. Celestial chi lingered in the air. It was a beautiful sight to behold. There were also flower fairies who transformed into human forms. Their colorful clothes fluttered in the air as they danced among the flowers. The two red-crowned cranes in the air transformed into two white-robed fairies. They held flower petals in their hands and danced in the air, gently sprinkling the petals as they chatted and laughed amidst the rain of holy light. Emo Chun, dressed in white, slowly descended from the sky and landed on the floating island. As the golden light on his body dissipated, the strange phenomenon in the sky also gradually disappeared. Only the immortal servant in human form respectfully knelt on the ground and congratulated him. Congratulations on your ascension, Holy Emperor. May you live as long as the heavens and earth, and shine as brightly as the sun and moon. Immortal monarchs from all over the world are here to pay their respects to the sage emperor. Congratulations on your ascension. May you live as long as the heavens and earth, and shine as brightly as the sun and moon. The celestial lords and celestial elders that had arrived outside the celestial island at some point in time came to offer their congratulations. The ascended celestial emperor was their master. Even if they were celestial lords and celestial elders, even if they were from powerful clans, they still had to come here to pay their respects to the ascended celestial emperor. However, everyone was unfamiliar with this newly ascended great emperor. They didn't know where this person had ascended from. What kind of person was he in the past? How did he ascend to become a celestial emperor from the lower realm? However, even if they were curious and wanted to investigate, they did not dare to be impudent. Without his permission, even if they were celestial lords, they did not dare to enter the celestial island of this celestial emperor. Chapter 4792. Everyone, please come in. Mo Chin's voice was neither fast nor slow. It contained a powerful aura of spiritual energy and clearly entered everyone's ears. When everyone heard the voice coming from inside, they looked at each other and walked in together. When they arrived inside, the door of the immortal mansion was open. They walked in and saw the immortal-like man in white sitting on the main seat in the palace. When they saw how young this man was, their eyes flashed and they were slightly surprised. They cupped their hands and bowed. Greetings, Saint Emperor. Congratulations on your ascension. All of them had cultivated for many years to reach the level of a divine king and were respectfully addressed as immortal masters or immortal elders. They did not expect this young man to possess the strength of a peak supreme being and ascend. He had obtained the right to live as long as the heavens and earth. They had to admit that comparisons were odious. They were both envious and shocked, but most of all, they were in awe of him. To be able to ascend to this level at such a young age, one could see how outstanding his talent and cultivation were. Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. Please take a seat. Emo Chan gestured for them to sit on both sides. Yes, thank you, Saint Emperor. They thanked him and moved to sit on both sides. When they sat down, their gazes fell on the Saint Emperor sitting on the main seat. They were even more shocked. They did not look carefully before, so they did not notice. Now they realized that the Saint Emperor had cultivated an immortal body. Moreover, the golden lotus mark between his eyebrows was floating, and his body was shining with a holy light. His entire being was enveloped in holy light. It was also because of this that they were called Saint Emperors. After all, when they ascended earlier, the vast expanse of saint light that illuminated the land was not something that ordinary people could possess. Now, it seemed that it was the light reflected by the saint light of the golden lotus. After one's strength reached the peak supreme being level and ascended to become an immortal, there was no immortal rank to be ranked, only great emperors. As for those present, some of them were at the peak of the God-King realm, while others were at the early stages of the venerable realm. Due to the age of their bones, they were known as immortal monarchs or immortal elders. Even though their strength had reached such a level, they were still unable to ascend to the immortal realm and become a sovereign realm emperor. Therefore, even though they were highly sought after outside, they were still extremely respectful in front of this newly ascended great emperor. They did not dare to be presumptuous at all. It's been nearly 1,000 years since a cultivator has ascended to immortality. Seeing the holy emperor ascend today is truly a joyous occasion. An immortal old man stood up and said. Then he smiled and cupped his hands at him. After that, he said, "This old man is immortal old man Mu Hua, the ancestor of the Duan clan in Jingxian City. Today, I have specially brought a gift to congratulate the great emperor." As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve, and 4 chests of treasures appeared in the middle of the palace, as well as 2 rare and large objects. After the first one started to present gifts, the others also stood up one after another as they took out treasures from the space and presented them. After a short while, all kinds of treasures were piled up in the middle of the hall like a small hill, glittering and dazzling. On the other side, Mo Chun was chatting with everyone in the main hall, inquiring about the situation in the territory he was in charge of. Time passed by quietly. Chapter 4793. In the airship, Ur sat beside Emperor Qing and asked, Master, can we go see Uncle Mo Chun? Uncle Mo Chun has ascended. Can we go see him? Emperor Qing closed his eyes and supported his head with one hand. When he heard Ur's words, he didn't even open his eyes and said, "No." Why? No one will recognize us like this. Ur blinked her eyes and said with a puzzled expression. Hearing this, Emperor Qing opened his eyes and sat up straight. He glanced at the 2 people not far away and the little girl sitting beside him and said slowly, "Your mother didn't send you to visit your relatives when you have time. If you have time, you'd better cultivate more." He looked at Ur and asked, "Have you memorized the whip technique?" "I've memorized it, but I haven't practiced it completely." Ur said softly, "Then put some thought into it and don't think about other things. Before you can take charge, I won't let you see the people you know." He said slowly and looked at the 3 of them. "After we go back, all of you go into seclusion and cultivate." "Yes," the 3 of them answered. Ur left his side and went to her 2 brothers. The 3 of them went into the cabin and whispered after the 3 of them followed their master back to the mountain. They were ordered to cultivate in seclusion and couldn't leave the mountain. Therefore, time passed quickly and another year passed in the blink of an eye. In the lower immortal realm, Fengjiu dressed in red once again came to the eastern sea spirit region. Du Fan, Lung Hua, and Lung Shuang were guarding this region. They hadn't seen their master for a year and were very happy to see her return. Master, I heard you said you're coming back. I didn't expect you to come back so quickly." "Master, you've been alone outside these days. Is everything all right?" The 3 of them came to her side and asked with unconcealable concern in their eyes. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Yes, I'm fine." She looked at the sea and asked, "Is everything normal here?" "Yes, Master. Everything is as per normal. Because of Master's orders, we didn't go down to the sea to check. We don't know how the Yama Lord is doing in the past year." Du Fan said as his gaze fell on the surface of the sea. "This year, no one went to the sea to disturb you, right?" Fengjiu asked slowly. "No. After those people found out that the Yama Lord was recuperating in the sea, they didn't come to disturb him again. In the past year, the cultivators who were originally guarding the area have gradually dispersed. No one dares to sneak into the sea again. Master, it's getting late. Why don't we rest on the ship?" Lung Shuang suggested. "All right," Fengjiu responded and followed the 3 of them to the spaceship. The Phoenix Guards were very happy to see her and were all prepared to welcome her. Everyone divided up the work. Some went to hunt, while others prepared other dishes. When night fell, everyone sat together to eat, drink, and chat. Fengjiu also told them about what she had seen and encountered in the past year. "I'm sure you all know about Mo Chen's ascension. In the past year, I specially went to the Nailan family and told his father about it," Fengjiu said as she took a sip of wine and looked at the sky. She couldn't help but squint. Chapter 4794. She even felt that the day of Mo Chen's ascension was just yesterday. But unknowingly, A year had passed in the blink of an eye. Master, the news of young Master Mo Chen's ascension has gradually spread. Many people are very surprised. After all, so many people saw him disappear between heaven and earth. Who would have thought that he would ascend first in the end? Leng Hua said, looking at Fengjiu. He asked, Master, in this year, did those people still send people to kill you? Fengjiu curled his lips, revealing a faint smile. He said, even if they want to kill me, they can't reach here. With the disparity in strength, it's easier said than done to take my life. Master, in this year, Monarch Black Tortoise has come to look for you a few times. Du Fan said, looking at him. The most recent time was a month ago. He came with his wife, saying that he wanted to see young Master. Want to see how? Fengjiu sneered. Does Howard have anything to do with them? That relationship was broken 800 years ago. How dare they come here and say that they want to see Howard? Du Fan and the others did not speak. They knew that when Master took Howard away, he had some disagreements with Monarch Black Tortoise and his wife. Perhaps as time passed, they remembered their eldest son and knew that they had gone too far. But now, it was impossible to see Howard. A few of them came, but they were all persuaded to leave. The most recent one to persuade them to leave was me. They said that they wished to see Master and apologize to Master personally. They also hoped that young Master would forgive them. Du Fan said. Fengjiu's eyes were cold. He said, in the future, if they come, just drive them away. As for other things, especially news about Howard, do not let them know anything. Yes, they replied. In fact, when Howard, Mu Chun, and Mu Yu left, only these trusted subordinates knew where they went. No one else knew. I have to go to the sea tomorrow, so I won't be drinking wine. You guys should drink less. Fengjiu stood up and said to Leng Shuang, do you have hot water? Yes, Master, it's ready. Leng Shuang stood up and led her to the cabin. Du Fan rubbed his nose and said, perhaps I shouldn't have told Master about this. He knew that Master would not be in a good mood after hearing this. Leng Hua patted him on the shoulder and said, Master, perhaps you're just tired. Besides, I still have to say this. You didn't do anything wrong. All right, let's get rid of everything. Master will be going to the sea tomorrow. Don't drink wine, lest you make a mistake. As Du Fan spoke, he had everyone take away the wine and dishes. The next morning, Fengjiu went into the sea alone and went to the place where Mose was sleeping. Perhaps after another year of nourishment, his body seemed to have become more solid under the sea. Looking at his familiar face that seemed to be in a deep sleep, her eyes were filled with gentleness and affection. He was still here, even if he was at the bottom of the sea, even if he had not woken up yet. To her, he was still here. One day, he would wake up and return to her side, to her and their children's side. Chapter 4795. She stayed at the bottom of the sea for an entire day and night, continuously transferring her green lotus chi to him. It was only the next day, when she felt exhausted, that she withdrew her hand and withdrew her green lotus chi. Mose, I'm preparing to ascend. You stay here and recuperate well. After I ascend, I'll kill all the people who caused you this much harm and avenge you. If you haven't woken up by then, I'll bring the children back to see you. She spoke softly and raised her hand to gently caress his face. Then she bent down and kissed him on the lips. However, when she kissed his lips, it was as if she had kissed the surface of the water. The faint sound of water rippling could be heard. She took a step back and looked at him quietly. Her eyes were filled with reluctance, longing, and determination. Don't worry, I'm ready. I'll definitely ascend successfully. She spoke softly and looked deeply into his eyes. Then she retreated step by step until she was some distance away. Then she set up the barrier again and left the bottom of the sea. She returned to the surface of the sea and landed in her flying ship. She quietly stared at the surface of the sea with a calm heart. Du Fan, Leng Hua, and Leng Shuang were standing behind her. When they saw her standing there quietly without saying a word, the three of them looked at each other and didn't say anything either. They just stood quietly behind her. After a long while, Fengjiu turned around and gave the three of them some instructions. Then, he returned to the cabin to rest. Is Master all right? He doesn't look too well. Leng Shuang was a little worried. He's probably just tired. He's fine, Du Fan said. I wonder how the Yama Lord is doing right now. Lung Hua looked at the surface of the sea and said softly, I don't think he's getting much better. Otherwise, Master wouldn't have come up alone. You should have brought him up with him. Du Fan sighed softly and said, Back then, Master said that he couldn't bring the Yama Lord away from the bottom of the Spirit Sea. Otherwise, how could Master bear to leave the Yama Lord alone in the deep sea? Lung Hua and Lung Shuang fell silent when they heard this. Indeed, if they could bring the Yama Lord out, how could their master bear to leave the Yama Lord alone in the deep sea? However, they didn't know when the Yama Lord would awaken. What they didn't expect was that their masters rest for 3 days. 3 days later, Feng Jiu came out of the cabin in the morning. She didn't look as tired as she did a few days ago, and her mental state had recovered very well. Master! When the three of them saw that she had come out and that her mental state had recovered, they finally relaxed. Feng Jiu responded and walked out. She sat down at the table at the bow of the ship and motioned to them. You guys sit down too. I have something to tell you. Hearing this, the three of them looked at each other and sat down. They asked, What is Master's order? I'm preparing to undergo the tribulation and ascend, so you'll have to take care of everything in the future. In addition, I didn't tell the Feng family's old residents about my ascension, so after I ascend, you'll have to tell them. Chapter 4796. Hearing her words, the three of them were silent for a while. Finally, Du Fan asked, Mistress, how long will it take for the Yama Lord to wake up? Also, is Mistress ready for your ascension? Have you confirmed that nothing will go wrong? If the people above take advantage of your ascension and attack you, then Feng Jiu smiled and said, I don't know when he will wake up, but when he wakes up, it will be the time of his ascension. All you need to do is to guard him. Don't worry about anything else. As for my ascension, don't worry. I'm ready. I know that those people want to kill me, so I won't give them a chance. Also, she paused and looked at the sky above her head. The corners of her lips curled into an arc. Her voice was soft and cold as she said, My ascension will be a contest between me and them. Once I ascend, they will no longer be able to do as they please. Instead, they will be the ones getting anxious. Mistress, let's go protect you. Du Fan said. 3 days ago, I informed my brother and sister that the place I've chosen for my ascension is the East Sea Spirit region. They should be here in a few days. Luo Yu and the rest will be here too. Feng Jiu looked at them and said, Listen carefully. When I ascend, spiritual energy will be everywhere within 100 meters. Immortal Qi will be lingering. This immortal Qi is an opportunity for cultivators. You must seize this opportunity and see if it can help you. They looked at each other and nodded. Yes. Feng Jiu raised her head and looked at the sky. Her eyes were filled with determination and conviction as she said slowly, Currently, the various layers of the heaven realm are separated, but one day in the future, I will definitely open the door that connects the 9 layers of the heaven realm, break through the layers of isolation, and let the 9 layers of heaven and earth become one. Hearing this, the 3 of them were shocked. Their eyes shone with a scorching light as they looked at their master. They could not help but smile. We believe that Mistress can do it. They didn't know about others, but their mistress could do it. The next morning, before dawn, Feng Jiu was already sitting on a huge rock near the sea of the East Sea Spirit domain. She was dressed in red, and her black hair was not tied up with anything. Instead, it cascaded down her back naturally. The sea breeze gently brushed against her face, as if a pair of gentle hands were gently lifting up her hair. Because Feng Jiu was ascending here, all the people and beasts within 100 li of this place had been chased away by the Phoenix Guards. The rest of the people had not arrived yet. Only the Phoenix team was guarding this place, accompanied by Du Fan, Lung Hua, and Lung Shuang. Because of Feng Jiu's instructions, they stood far away, dozens of meters away from her, quietly watching and guarding her. Their hearts were in turmoil, and they were very worried. With Yama Lord as a precedent, even if their mistress said that it was fine and that she was prepared, they still couldn't help but worry. However, they also knew that their worries couldn't help her. All they could do was quietly guard her from afar and not let anyone disturb her, so that she could ascend without worry. Chapter 4797. At this moment, her mood was calm and her heart was firm. She knew what she had to do, what she had to face, and the path she had to choose as she closed her eyes. The first rays of the morning sun rose from the eastern sea and dyed the seawater golden. Her hands gently moved, and after mobilizing the spiritual energy in her body, she slowly formed a lotus shape with her hands and placed them on her legs. Pure spiritual energy surged out from her body and pervaded her surroundings. The ancient mythological beast pressure was also released at this moment, mixing with the pure spiritual energy in her body and surging. The surging of the spiritual energy caused her robes to emit a whistling sound, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. The aura in the sky and the aura on the sea gradually surged because of her, and clouds began to gather. The morning sky was originally blue and cloudless, but at this moment, as Fengjiu's aura surged and released the pressure from her body, layers of clouds began to condense and float over from afar. They gradually gathered above the East Sea, forming a large layer of dark clouds. The morning sun that rose from the east was already covered by the thick clouds, and not a single ray of light could be seen. Strong winds blew on the surface of the sea, and the waves crashed, splashing up waves. In the sky, muffled sounds of thunder could be heard, one after another. It was as if a huge bolt of lightning was gathering, and it did not fall for a long time. Lightning flashed through the clouds, but there was still no bolt of lightning. In the distance, Du Fan, Lung Hua, and Lung Shuang were watching with their hearts in their mouths. Their palms were sweaty. They looked at their mistress, then looked at the dark clouds in the sky and the huge bolt of lightning that seemed to be gathering above her head and was about to strike. "Don't worry. Mistress will definitely be fine." Mistress said that everything is ready. She is confident that nothing will happen. "Don't worry, don't worry." Du Fan nervously muttered to himself. It was unknown whether he was comforting the two people beside him or himself. Time passed, and at the first moment of the morning, a bolt of lightning flashed and a bolt of lightning struck from the clouds, accurately striking Fengjiu below. Boom! The sound of the bolt of lightning seemed to have penetrated half the sky and reached the clouds. As it echoed in the sky, it alarmed the experts in all directions. After the bolt of lightning struck her, several bolts of lightning fell from the sky, forming several lightning pillars that surrounded Fengjiu. The lightning pillars formed from the lightning pillars reached the sea and the clouds, making crackling sounds. There were even traces of electricity that shot out from the lightning pillars, making people's hair stand on end and their hearts clench tightly. At the same time, when the experts in all directions heard the bolt of lightning, they were stunned. Lightning? Who is advancing? The sound of the heavenly thunder sounds different from before. It seems this is the ascension lightning tribulation. Why is another person ascending? A year ago, Mo Chun ascended to the 9 heavens. A year later, could it be Fengjiu? Chapter 4798. It must be the ghost Dr. Fengjiu who has ascended. Other than the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, there's no one else. Quick, let's go take a look. Experts from all sides rushed towards the source of the heavenly thunder after hearing it. In the past, they would not have had the chance to witness the ascension of an expert. However, Xinyuan Mo's Fengjiu and Nalen Mo Chun had appeared in this world. Each of them had the cultivation of a sovereign at such a young age, especially Mo Chun, who had successfully ascended. Now that it was Fengjiu's turn, they could not help but feel excited. Perhaps another supreme great emperor who had ascended to the 9 heavens was about to be born. Some people were overjoyed. Now that the demon Fengjiu had left, this place would be theirs. In the future, they would not have to worry about anything they did. Therefore, experts from all sides rushed towards the source of the heavenly thunder with various emotions. They wanted to see what was going on. In the upper immortal realm of the 9 heavens, Mo Chun, who was floating in the immortal abode on the immortal island, opened his eyes and smiled when he heard the heavenly thunder. His expression was calm and gentle, but the light in his eyes was filled with joy and anticipation. "Fengjiu," she's finally coming. On the other side, when the great emperors heard the heavenly thunder from the lower immortal realm, their expressions changed instantly. Who else would dare to ascend from the lower immortal realm except for the ghost, Dr. Fingio? Damn it. I can't believe that we still can't take her life after trying everything we can for more than a year. She's still thinking of ascending to become an immortal after living for so long. She's overestimating herself. One of the great emperors stepped out of the palace and looked at the sky with his hands behind his back. When he heard the heavenly thunder, his face darkened. That's good too. Since she dares to ascend, we can take advantage of her ascension to kill her. He revealed a sinister smile. In the next moment, with a flick of his sleeve, he disappeared on the spot. When the azure arch of cloud sky mountain heard the thunder, he raised his brows and muttered, "This Fungio is really bold. How long has it been? He dared to ascend? Looks like she's really prepared." After he finished speaking, he paused for a moment and walked out of the cave. He walked outside with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky. As he listened to the thunder in the sky, he revealed a playful smile and murmured, "I wonder if she can really ascend successfully." "Master, master!" The three children descended from the sky on their swords. Their faces were filled with anxiety and worry as they quickly arrived in front of him. The Lotus Emperor glanced at the three of them and asked, "Why are you here instead of cultivating?" "Master, is my mother undergoing the Ascension Tribulation?" Howard asked, his gaze falling on him. Among the three of them, he was the oldest. Thus, when he heard the heavenly thunder, he immediately thought that it was very likely that their mother was undergoing the Ascension Tribulation. "Master, master, is it my mother? Will my mother be able to ascend successfully? Will she be in danger?" Ewer went forward and tugged at his sleeve. Her small face was filled with worry. Chapter 4799. Muchin didn't say anything, but he looked at their master nervously. He wanted to know if it was their mother, as their elder brother had said. Emperor Qing glanced at the three of them and pulled back his sleeve, which was being pulled by Ewer. He slowly walked to the stone table under the tree and sat down. He said, "In this world of immortals, there's no one else who has the ability to ascend except your parents. Your father, Xianyuan Mose, failed to ascend last time, so naturally, it's impossible for him to ascend at this time. So, the person today is undoubtedly your mother. Then will our mother be in danger? Will she be able to ascend smoothly?" Muchin couldn't help but ask, "Master, will those people who want to harm my father and mother take this opportunity to make a move on my mother? Will it be very dangerous for my mother to ascend now?" Howard asked worriedly. "Master," Ewer hurriedly called out. Emperor Qing raised his hand and stopped them from asking further. "Those who want to harm her will naturally not let go of such a good opportunity. Whether she can ascend smoothly will naturally depend on your mother. Master, I beg you to help our mother." Ewer knelt down, and raising her small face, she pitifully begged him. "Master, master." Howard and Muchin also knelt down. Although they didn't say it, their meaning was clear. "Get up." Emperor Qing looked at them and said, "It's useless to kneel because your mother's path is different from others. The things she will do in the future will be more difficult and dangerous than her ascension today. If she can't resolve the crisis and ascend smoothly today, how can she face her enemies in the future?" He paused and glanced at them. "Don't tell me that if she encounters danger in the future and encounters something she can't solve, you'll kneel down and beg me to help her? You must know that everyone has their own mission, their own life, and their own difficulties. If you blindly rely on others for help, how long can others help you?" When the three of them heard his words, they were momentarily stunned. Perhaps because they were still young, they didn't quite understand, but they vaguely understood what he meant. Thus, the three of them looked at each other and paused for a moment. Then, they lowered their heads and said in a low voice, "Master, we were insensible." Emperor Qing nodded and said, "You may rise." The three of them responded and stood up. "Life and death are predestined. You don't have to worry. It's useless to worry. She has advanced today. She won't ascend in a day or two. Calm down and go back to cultivate." Emperor Qing said slowly. Hearing those words, The three of them moved their lips as if they wanted to say something. However, in the end, they didn't say anything. They only responded with a sound of acknowledgement before leaving together. Their mother was undergoing the heavenly lightning tribulation. So how could they calm down and cultivate? However, what could they do if they didn't cultivate? They were still young and couldn't help her with anything. Let's go. Let's go back and cultivate. We have to believe in Mother. She can definitely do it. How? Or held their hands and said firmly, yes, Mother will definitely ascend safely. At that time, maybe we will be able to see her again. And nodded with a serious expression on her face. Let's go back and cultivate. Muchin also said. The three of them returned to the cave residence. Chapter 4800. The heavenly thunder in the sky faintly reverberated in the various heavenly realms. Day after day, the heavenly thunder and the sound of lightning made people's hearts hang in suspense. One day, 2 days passed, and the heavenly thunder was still roaring. 3 bolts of lightning fell every day, and after 3 bolts of lightning fell, the next day would be the next. Just like that, 3 to 5 days passed. Those who thought that Fengjiu would not be able to hold on could not help but be very surprised. Fengjiu's heavenly thunder tribulation was different from Mo Chen's. It was the same as Xianyuan Moses' heavenly thunder tribulation. There were only 3 bolts of heavenly thunder a day, and each bolt was more powerful than the last. Seeing that Fengjiu had endured 49 bolts of heavenly thunder, and she was still sitting cross-legged below, unharmed, the 4 great emperors in the upper immortal realm could not help but feel anxious. How can this be? We have clearly increased the power of the heavenly thunder and lightning. How could she still hold on? One of them said, anxiously pacing up and down in the main hall with his hands behind his back. Could it really be the destined phoenix star? Could she really have such good fortune? Another great emperor's brows were also filled with worry. Fengjiu was so strong, and her luck was so heaven-defying. If she really succeeded in ascending, would she be able to live a peaceful life in the future? At that time, they would not rest until one of them was dead. Have you forgotten? She has the ancient green lotus in her body. Moreover, I noticed that after being tempered by heavenly thunder every day, her body would be enveloped in a layer of green aura, and a green lotus would appear between her eyebrows. It is said that this ancient green lotus is the head of the 4 lotuses and has the ability to quickly recover. I reckon that the green lotus has something to do with her being able to hold on until now. Another great emperor frowned and said in a low voice. After thinking for a while, he said, I think that increasing the power of the heavenly thunder and lightning will not be able to defeat her. On the contrary, she can withstand it. Her bones and tendons have been tempered even more, and her immortal body will only become stronger in the future. I think we have to attack from another side. One of the great emperors who had not spoken all this time pondered for a while, then looked at the person who spoke and asked, then in your opinion, how should we attack? Why don't we create a clone to deal with her? We can only deal with her if we go down there ourselves. Otherwise, no one in the lower immortal world is a match for her. If we can't obtain her personality now, then when she succeeds in her ascension, we'll have an endless battle to the death. If we send her clones down, our strength will also be restricted. I'm afraid that we won't be able to deal with her at all. Moreover, the risk is too great. Another person shook his head when he heard the first person's words. It was obvious that he refused. If you can't do this and you can't do that, then tell me, what should I do? The great emperor's mood became irritable when he heard that. Chapter 4801. You're saying that when the last bolt of lightning strikes, the 4 of us will combine our strength to give her a heavy blow? One of them heard this, and his expression changed slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. That's right. The great emperor nodded and said, although we've done something these days, we all know that the power of the lightning strikes is at most 20% of our strength. When the time comes, the 4 of us will each use 60 to 70% of our strength. Do you think that she can withstand 60 to 70% of our strength by herself? Will there be any risks? One of the more cautious great emperors asked hesitantly, what risks can there be? As long as we can kill her, even if she consumes too much spiritual energy and can't recover in a short period of time, what's the harm in resting for a while? The great emperor who made the suggestion said, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that this method was feasible. The other two thought for a while and finally nodded. Okay, let's do it. Even if they had to hurt themselves, as long as they could kill the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, it would be worth it. Thus, the four of them began to conserve their strength. When the last bolt of lightning gathered and was ready to strike, the four of them would combine their strength to give Fengjiu a fatal blow. In the East Sea Spirit region, Guan Shilin and Wanyan Qianhua had arrived. Other than them, there were also the other captains of the 8 Phoenix Guards. They gathered here to guard her. While watching her advance, they were also worried. For the past few days, they had been watching the heavenly thunder in the sky strike Feng Ix's body with a terrifying airflow. At the same time as the heavenly thunder, there was also the lightning ray, which made them tremble with fear. Their hearts were tightly clenched, afraid that Feng Nine would not be able to bear it and fall down. She seems to be in a good condition. Wanyan Qianhua gently exhaled as he spoke. However, his hand was tightly holding Jun Jushang's hand. He didn't even realize that he had scratched a few marks on Jun Jushang's hand. Jun Jushang patted her hand gently and said, "Don't worry." This was not the first time she had experienced a tribulation. When had she not survived it? It's okay. Just relax. How can I relax? Mose is already in such a state, and he's still sleeping at the bottom of the sea. We don't even know when he'll wake up. If something happens to her, what should we do? The more she spoke, the more nervous and worried she became. Her beautiful eyes stared at Fengjiu in the distance. Xiao Jiu has already withstood 49 bolts of lightning. Don't worry. She'll be fine. I believe in her, Guan Shilin said, looking at Fengjiu in the distance. They couldn't see her clearly from here. One reason was because of the distance, and the other was because of the lightning pillars surrounding her. However, if they looked carefully, they could see the green lotus that appeared between her eyebrows, as well as the green lotus aura that emanated from her body after 3 bolts of lightning every day. Chapter 48:02. Jun Jueshang patted her hand and said with a faint smile, "You think too much. Not everyone can reach their level of strength, and not everyone can have the opportunity to ascend like them." Guan Shilin also smiled and said, "Yes. How many people in this world can reach the peak of the Supreme Being realm? Besides, although we are not weak, we are still far from the Supreme Being realm. Some people can't even touch the edge of the Supreme Being realm after cultivating for a lifetime. It's too early to talk about ascending." He smiled and looked at the clouds that were gathering in the sky. "Moreover, I'm fine now. I have a family, and I have Yi Jing and my child to accompany me. I'm already very satisfied. I don't think too much about other things." He had never been an ambitious person. He wanted to become strong only to protect the people who were important to him. With his current strength, he could be considered as the strongest among the strongest in the heaven realm. In addition to his relationship with Xiao Jiu, no one dared to attack them. Therefore, it could be said that everything they had now was what they wanted to have. Wanyan Qianhua and Jun Jueshang couldn't help but look at each other when they heard this. For them, everything they had now was the life they wanted to have. It was peaceful and happy, and they had already obtained it. Everyone's pursuit was different. Some people wanted to be famous, some wanted to gain fame and fortune, some wanted to become strong for the sake of becoming strong, and some were forced to become strong by fate. There were also some like them, who only wanted to live an ordinary life with their loved ones, their children, and their families. Fengjiu and the others, even though they yearned for such a life, fate had always forced them to grow and become strong. Perhaps only when they were strong enough to become the Supreme Being realm in the heaven and earth could they live the ordinary and warm life they wanted in the depths of the sea. Xinyuan Mose, who was in a deep sleep, was crazily absorbing the aura of spiritual power. The aura of spiritual power was absorbed into his body and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The water at the bottom of the sea surged, but the surface of the sea was the same as before. Only the sea near where Fengjiu was surging due to the airflow fluctuations, rolling up layers of spray and slapping against the surface of the sea, producing the whistling sound of waves. Within the pillar of lightning, Fengjiu closed her eyes and gently raised her hands to form a seal in front of her. As her hands moved, the aura of the green lotus spread out and quickly repaired the marks left on her body by the heavenly lightning. Between her eyebrows, a green lotus appeared, emitting a green light. She was dressed in red and had black hair. Her body was enveloped in green light. Her face was beautiful and cold, and her expression was calm and steady. After using the power of the green lotus to repair the marks left on her body by the heavenly lightning, she gently turned her hands and placed them between her knees again. Her palms faced up as she sat quietly. From the beginning to the end, she didn't open her eyes. In the upper immortal realm, in Cloud Sky Mountain, Hao and the other two watched the days pass by. They counted that the heavenly lightning struck 3 times a day, and now they had struck down 49 bolts. Up until now, they hadn't even seen their mother going through the tribulation in the lower immortal realm. Thus, they couldn't help but want to beg their master to let them see their mother. Chapter 48:03. The 3 of them came to the soft bed under the tree to take a look. Seeing their master sleeping soundly, they couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. "Big brother, master seems to be asleep," Yu whispered. Hao looked at their master and thought for a while. He also lowered his voice and said, "Then let's wait for master to wake up." Hearing this, Muchen looked at their master and his eyes flashed. In fact, he felt that their master might not necessarily be sleeping soundly. Perhaps he already knew that they were coming and was just pretending to be asleep. Yu nodded and replied, "Okay, then we'll wait here for master to wake up." Seeing their master sleeping, it didn't seem good to wake him up. Even if they felt that their master might just be pretending to be asleep, they couldn't go up and disturb him like this. They could only wait obediently at the side. The 3 of them also didn't leave and stood by the soft bed to wait. As time passed little by little, their master didn't show any signs of waking up. They couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Yu's pair of beautiful eyes turned, and a crafty radiance flashed through her eyes. Her small face revealed a little fox-like smile. Then she winked towards her 2 elder brothers. Then, lowering her voice, she said in a low voice, "Big brother, don't you feel that master is still very good?" Hao and Mu Chun immediately understood what she meant and couldn't help but smile. However, this smile only appeared for a moment before it quickly disappeared. Then, Hao seriously looked at their master and whispered, "Yes, master is indeed very good-looking. In mother's words, he is a very handsome man. Although I think father is the most good-looking person in the world, master is also very good-looking. It's just that he's a little bit inferior to father." Mu Chun said solemnly as he stared intently at their master's face. He, our father is the most good-looking person, but master is also very good-looking. Look at his eyebrows. Aren't they the sword-like eyebrows mentioned in the books? And master's eyes, even though they're closed now, they'll still be like stars when they're open. And his nose, it's straight and tall, and it's also very good-looking. Yes, master's mouth is also very good-looking. There's even a slight horn at the corner of his mouth. Mother said that this is a lotus horn. A mouth with a lotus horn is very good-looking no matter if it's a man or a woman. And master's chin and the shape of his face. The 3 of them stared at Emperor Qing and sized him up with their 6 eyes. They even commented on him in a low voice. Even though Emperor Qing was very patient, he still couldn't stand the scorching eyes of the 3 little guys as they sized him up and commented on him. In the end, he finally opened his eyes. His gaze swept past Hao and Mu Chun before landing on Yu, who was chattering endlessly. His voice was deep and magnetic, as well as somewhat lazy. "Are you done?" Yu automatically shut her mouth when he opened his eyes. At this time, hearing his question, she smiled and narrowed her eyes. With an innocent look, she softly called out, "Master, you're awake?" Seeing that he didn't respond, Yu felt a little guilty. She smiled with a bit of fawning and said, "We were waiting for master to wake up just now. When we saw master's sleeping appearance, we realized that master's sleeping appearance is very good-looking. Is that so?" Emperor Qing asked unhurriedly. Chapter 48:04. Master, we want to see Mother. Master, please show us Mother. Yu said, blinking her beautiful big eyes at him. Hearing this, Emperor Qing glanced at them. Seeing the anticipation and pleading on their little faces, he paused for a moment and flicked his sleeve. A floating image appeared in front of them. In the image, their mother was sitting cross-legged there. Her body was suffused with a green aura, and a strong airflow was surging around her. Looking at that familiar face, the three children couldn't help but step forward and call out, "Mother!" However, they didn't get any response from her. Seeing that she was fine there, Howard couldn't help but look at their master, as if wanting to get an answer from him that could reassure them. He asked, "Master, my mother has already experienced so many heavenly thunders. She will definitely be able to pass through the remaining heavenly thunders smoothly, right?" Emperor Qing looked at him and saw the worry and apprehension in his eyes. His gaze turned and fell on Fengjiu in the image. Seeing that her mental state was very good, he nodded and said, "If there are no accidents, she should have no problem with the remaining heavenly thunders." Hearing this, Howard lightly exhaled and revealed a big smile. "That's good. I knew that Mother would definitely be able to do it." When Mu Chun and Mu Yu heard this, they looked at each other and smiled happily. They watched there for a while. Perhaps because the three heavenly thunders had already fallen today, they only saw their mother recuperating there. Therefore, after a while, the image was flicked away by their master. "All right, go back and concentrate on your cultivation. Children shouldn't think too much about adult matters all day long." Emperor Qing gestured for the three of them to go back and cultivate. The three of them had already achieved their purpose of this trip. They saw that their mother was fine and heard from their master that their mother would successfully ascend. Only then did they feel relieved. The three of them respectfully bowed and left. In the city, Shun Shiqi and the other individual cultivators who had chased Yu to the city came again. However, they couldn't find the little fox-like girl they had met on the road. In the restaurant, they were sitting by the window, drinking wine and eating peanuts. One of the individual cultivators said, "Old Shun, it's been more than a year, and we haven't heard any news about that little girl. The people who sent out the information couldn't find her either. It seems that the little girl is either in the sect or deep in the mountains. Otherwise, with our power, it's impossible that we can't find any news about her. Yes, in this year, we have also secretly investigated almost all the aristocratic families, but there's no trace of that little girl. That little girl shouldn't be from here. But I'm curious. How do you think such a little girl avoided our tracking? Not to mention the fact that there's no trace of her in this city. There's no trace of her in the neighboring towns either. We've released the portrait, but there's no clue at all. She's really mysterious. Moreover, it's been more than a year," said another row cultivator. As soon as he finished speaking, he threw a peanut into his mouth. Chapter 48:05. Besides, we already said that the little girl's face we saw back then was covered by a concealment technique. It's not strange that we couldn't find her. However, I believe that we will meet again one day. Only you would be interested in looking for a little girl for more than a year. The few of us are really loyal. We've been following you around for more than a year. I don't know what we're after," another person said with a smile. He looked at Shun Shiqi and joked, "It's a pity that the little girl is a little young. Otherwise, she could be your wife." When the other two heard this, they immediately laughed out loud. Shun Shiqi smiled and said, "All right, don't make fun of me. Anyway, we have nothing to do, so we're just looking around. Or are you guys going back?" He looked at them and asked, "No, we're free outside. If we go back, we'll be restricted. However, last year, a great emperor ascended from the immortal realm. Did you guys hear the news? Do you know where he came from? How many years has it been since an expert ascended from the immortal realm? That expert ascended from the immortal realm. Everyone was shocked. How do we not hear about it? Besides, it's been a year. Naturally, everyone knows about the existence of this great emperor." As Shun Shiqi said this, he drank a mouthful of wine and ate a few peanuts. He said, "It's said that this great emperor who ascended is called the Great Emperor. Some call him Saint Emperor for short. This person's immortal body was formed from an ancient golden lotus. When he ascended, his entire body was dazzling. I've heard about it too. However, it seems that no one knows the origin of this great emperor. After all, there are so many heavens between the immortal realm and the immortal realm. The immortal realm doesn't know about the immortal realm. The immortal realm also doesn't know about the immortal realm. It's really curious. Another person said, "You guys don't know?" Another person lowered his voice and laughed. "I've heard some news. Do you guys know that in the immortal realm, there's a woman who's called the Ghost Dr. Fungio?" Ghost Dr. Fungio? Why does this sound so familiar? Another person said, "I've heard of this person. It's said that she's the Phoenix Star. Her medical and alchemy skills are unparalleled in the world. Her talent and strength are shocking. She's a genius that only appears once in 10,000 years." Shinshichi's eyes shone with admiration as he said, "I've heard my father mention her before. He said that Ghost Dr. Fongio was a deviant soul who came into this world. She was destined to be the Phoenix Star. There was also a prophecy about her. It said that she would become the ruler of the world. She would stand above all the immortals and become a supreme ruler." At this point, Shinshichi paused for a moment before continuing with a burning gaze. "Furthermore, it is precisely because of this that the 4 great emperors and a few other emperor lords joined forces to kill her. I heard from the elders in my family about the recent sky lightning tribulation. You're saying that the ghost Dr. Fungio is the one who's going through the lightning tribulations 3 times a day?" Another person asked in surprise. It was obvious that he had only just found out. Shinshichi nodded and said, "That's right. Counting the days, she's already gone through 49 small lightning tribulations. As long as she's refined by the lightning tribulations, she'll be able to ascend and become an immortal. My family's elders said that this person has a high chance of successfully ascending. Also, if she succeeds, our world will change." Chapter 48:06. Shinshichi gestured to them, and the other 3 came closer. He lowered his voice and said, "I'm only reminding you because it's you guys. You guys better send a message back to your families. I heard that the 4 great emperors are working together to deal with this ghost, Dr. Fungio. They want her dead. They're afraid that she'll come up and steal their power and territory. They're afraid that one day, Ghost Dr. Fungio will stand on top of their heads. Hence, they want her dead." Hearing this, the 3 of them were shocked. They looked at each other, and one of them asked, "Do you think that even if Ghost Dr. Fungio succeeds in ascending with her strength alone, can she fight against the 4 great emperors?" That's why I said that you guys are not up to date with the news." Shinshichi laughed and looked at them. "This Ghost Dr. Fungio is not an ordinary person. Furthermore, there's another piece of news that you guys don't know. The great emperor who ascended a year ago has an extremely deep relationship with Ghost Dr. Fungio." Hearing this, the 3 of them were startled. They clearly didn't expect this. If she really ascends, will the 4 great emperors work together to suppress her? Or even let us, the aristocratic families, suppress that ghost Dr. Fungio? It seems like one of them frowned as he spoke. Shinshichi stepped back and leaned against the back of the chair. He said leisurely, "Just listen to me. There won't be any mistakes. If you don't understand something, just send the news back. The elders in your families will think about it." Seeing this, the 3 of them looked at each other and cupped their hands. "Old Shun, thank you. We're all brothers. There's no need to thank me." He waved his hand and didn't mind. His gaze turned to the street outside. He wondered when he would meet that little girl again. The next time he met her, he would definitely ask her how she managed to hide from them. The days passed one by one. However, whether it was the lower mortal realm or the upper mortal realm, it seemed a little oppressive. Especially the aristocratic families and sects in the upper mortal realm. They felt a little peaceful recently. It was like the calm before the storm. The calm made people feel inexplicably uneasy and anxious. Today was the 27th day of Fongio's tempering by the thunder of soaring. It was also the last day. If she could successfully survive the 3 heavenly thunders today, then what awaited her was to be reborn into an immortal body and ascend to the 9 heavens. Today, the 3 heavenly thunders had yet to fall. However, the clouds in the sky were becoming more and more oppressive and terrifying. On the surface of the sea, The wind was blowing and the waves were roaring. The waves were swept up high by the wind and slammed against the surface of the sea fiercely, creating loud, crashing sounds. In the Spirit Sea region of the East Sea, the various sovereigns were watching from afar. Luo Yu and the other captains of the Phoenix Guard, as well as Du Fan and Guan Shilin, were nervously looking at the red figure that was still sitting there quietly. After so many days of tribulation, the special red robe on her was already charred in some places and tattered in others. The color was no longer as bright as before. However, her expression remained the same. She was still as calm as ever. The green lotus between her eyebrows continued to provide her with an endless supply of green lotus chi. It was as if she could not sense what was happening outside. She was only focused on her ascension. Chapter 48:07. Their divine senses penetrated through the layers of clouds and locked onto the red figure below. Seeing that she had held on until now, the four of them had ugly expressions. I didn't expect Fengjiu to have such heaven-defying luck. It's already the last day, and only the last heavenly lightning is left, one of the great emperors said with a heavy heart. Since that's the case, let's do what we agreed on previously. I don't believe that she can really withstand a sure kill attack from the four of us. One of the great emperors said with a gloomy gaze as he stared below. Increase the power of the first 2 heavenly lightning bolts. If she can withstand it, the four of us will join forces to strike the last heavenly lightning. All right. Immediately, the four of them looked at each other. 2 of them mobilized the powerful pressure in their bodies and prepared to increase the power of the heavenly lightning that was about to descend. At the same time, at Cloud Sky Mountain, Emperor Qing and the 3 children were watching the scene in the floating mirror under a tree. They were watching Fengjiu undergo the heavenly lightning refinement on the last day. The 3 children were nervous. Even Yu, who was usually the most talkative, was holding her breath. She didn't even dare to breathe loudly, let alone speak. Emperor Qing glanced at the 3 children and then looked at Fengjiu in the mirror. Then he shifted his gaze and looked at the sky. He felt that those people wouldn't let Fengjiu off so easily, especially when Fengjiu was undergoing the last 3 heavenly lightning refinement. Those people couldn't just watch and not do anything. He paused for a moment and got up from the soft couch. With his hands behind his back, he leisurely walked away. Hao who had been staring at the scene, sensed it and looked up. He saw their master leisurely walking on the wind with his hands behind his back. In a few seconds, he was heading towards the peak of the mountain. He couldn't help but wonder what his master was going to do. As the peak of Cloud Sky Mountain was shrouded in clouds and mist, it was very difficult to see the scenery at the peak of the mountain, even from within Cloud Sky Mountain. Therefore, when he saw their master heading towards the peak of the mountain, Hao pondered for a while. Since his master didn't say anything and didn't say much, he didn't ask and wasn't curious. Because what he wanted to see was his mother successfully ascending. At this moment, no matter who called him, he didn't want to leave this scene. Mu Chun and Mu Yu didn't notice their master's departure. Or rather, they knew it, but they didn't care. At this moment, no one was more important than their mother, even if that person was their master. When they reached the peak of Cloud Sky Mountain, the Lotus Emperor clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the distant sky while facing the wind. After a while, he retracted his gaze and sat down cross-legged on a smooth rock. Fengjiu closed her eyes, but at this moment, she felt the oppressive and powerful airflow above her head. The powerful pressure and airflow made her feel the aura of death and murderous intent. She felt 2 strands of murderous intent from the powerful pressure and airflow. Almost in an instant, her mind was clear. Obviously, it was those people who wanted to take her life. But did they really think it was that easy to take her life? The corners of her lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint arc. Chapter 48:08. She only felt the lightning and heavenly thunder strike her body at the same time. The powerful impact was like a torrent of water from high above, hitting her body heavily. At that moment, she felt a wave of pain and numbness coursing through her veins. The tempering of the heavenly thunder caused her skin, flesh, tendons, and bones to suffer an extremely powerful impact and pain at that moment. She clenched her teeth tightly and clenched her hands into fists. She forced herself to endure the excruciating pain, as if her bones and tendons were being broken and then crushed. Cold sweat seeped out of her forehead, and beads of sweat rolled down her cheeks. However, in the next moment, they were blown away by the airflow from her body. Guanxilin and the others, who were watching from a place where the pressure and airflow could not reach, saw that this heavenly thunder was even more powerful than the previous one. They could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat. When they saw her forcing herself to endure with a painful expression, they became even more anxious. In an immortal mansion in the upper immortal realm, Imo-chan sat cross-legged and released his divine sense. He knew that those people would definitely make things difficult for Fengjiu and obstruct her ascension. Therefore, he stood guard here quietly. If Fengjiu really could not hold on in the end, he would be able to lend a hand. Moreover, he believed that with Fengjiu's strength, she would definitely be able to ascend smoothly. All he needed to do was to stand guard. Unexpectedly, about half an incense stick of time after the first bolt of lightning struck down, the second bolt of lightning struck down immediately after. The loud rumbling sound shook the heaven realm, and the sound of thunder rumbled and reverberated in the sky. Fengjiu's previous heavenly thunder strikes were separated by a certain amount of time. This gave her time to recuperate and adapt. Now that the first heavenly thunder had just struck, the second one followed closely behind. It was obvious how much those people wanted to kill her. The four great emperors in the sky saw that Fengjiu in the lower realm had actually withstood two heavenly thunders. For a moment, their faces darkened. I didn't expect her to be able to hold on. A great emperor said hatefully. He was a little angry. This Fengjiu is indeed extraordinary. She's so strong and powerful. No matter what we do, we can't let her ascend successfully. Now that two of the last three heavenly thunders have fallen, it seems that she can withstand them. Then, we only have one chance left. Another great emperor said in a gloomy and ruthless voice. No, look, she's vomiting blood. A great emperor who had been staring at Fengjiu exclaimed softly. His voice was filled with unconcealable joy and excitement. When the other three heard this, they looked down again. Indeed, they saw Fengjiu spit out a mouthful of blood with a pu sound. The corner of his mouth was stained with a trace of blood, and his face was pale. Ha 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 ha. Looks like our attacks are still effective. She shouldn't be able to hold on much longer. A great emperor raised his head and laughed loudly. His face was filled with excitement. Fengjiu vomited blood. This proved that Fengjiu could no longer withstand the power of the two heavenly thunders. Even if she was still holding on, she had withstood the first two heavenly thunders. There was no way she could withstand the third one and ascend to immortality. Chapter 4809. Let's send her on her way. It's best if her soul scatters and dissipates between heaven and earth. She will never enter the cycle of reincarnation. One of the great emperors narrowed his eyes and said. A ruthless glint flashed across his eyes. All right, the four of us will join forces and give her a fatal blow. As the other three spoke, they looked at each other and revealed a grim smile. Just as the four great emperors were preparing for the final blow, on Cloud Sky Mountain, the three children saw their mother vomiting blood and her face turning pale. They couldn't help but become anxious. What should we do? Mother vomited blood. Will she be all right? Er's eyes were red from worry. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she forced them back down. Mother will be fine. She will definitely be fine, Mu-chan said firmly. His little face was tense as he looked nervously at the scene in front of him. Mother, Hao called out softly. His voice was choked with sobs, and his heart was thumping wildly. No one knew that his body was trembling because of fear and worry. At the peak of Cloud Sky Mountain, Emperor Qing was also paying attention to Fengjiu's situation below. When he saw her vomiting blood, he frowned slightly. However, he still closed his eyes and sat there quietly. Perhaps, in his opinion, since Fengjiu could withstand the first three bolts of heavenly thunder, she should also be able to withstand the last three bolts of heavenly thunder. What's more, She herself was an alchemist, so perhaps she had refined some kind of divine pill in reserve. It was impossible for her to vomit blood just because of these two bolts of heavenly thunder. However, judging from the current situation, it would appear that he was indeed injured. If he was injured, the situation would become very dangerous in the final bolt of heavenly lightning. At the same time, at the Spirit Sea realm, Guan Shilin and the others were also shocked when they saw Fengjiu vomit blood. She vomited blood. What should we do? There's still the last bolt of lightning. Will she be able to withstand it? Guan Shilin said anxiously. Wanyan Qianhua looked at Fengjiu in front of him and took a deep breath. He looked at Jun Jueshang beside him and asked, "What do you think?" Jun Jueshang pursed his lips and looked at Fengjiu in front of him with a grave expression. He said, "I'm afraid that her heart and 5 internal organs will be injured. If that happens, I'm afraid that she won't be able to withstand the last bolt of lightning. Based on her situation, the consequence of failure is very likely." Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua immediately said, "Let's find a way to save her. We can't just watch her die in front of us." As soon as she finished speaking, she wanted to take a step forward. "Wait." Du Fan and Leng Hua spoke at the same time. They walked over and looked at Wanyan Qianhua and the others. They said, "Master told us not to disturb her when she's breaking through. We can only observe and not get close. It's useless no matter who gets close to her. Not only can we not save her, but it's also very likely that we'll be accidentally injured by the lightning." Wanyan Qianhua's face darkened when he heard this. He said, "But she's vomiting blood now. Do you know what will happen if she fails?" Du Fan and Leng Hua looked at each other and nodded. They said, "Of course we know. However, we're here to protect her under Master's orders. Moreover, we believe in Master." Chapter 48:10. Seeing this, Zhen Jushang held Wanyan Qianhua's hand and said, "Believe in Fengjiu. She never does anything she's not sure of. Besides, Du Fan and the others are right. She has withstood so many bolts of lightning, so there's no reason for her not to be able to withstand the last one. Believe in her." Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua nodded and didn't say anything else. She just leaned into Zhen Jushang's arms and didn't dare to look at the scene where the last bolt of lightning was about to strike. Hearing this, Guan Shilin was also silent for a while. He didn't say anything, but his hands were tightly clenched into fists and his palms were sweaty. "Look, the wind and waves on the sea are a little unusual." Leng Shuang looked at the sea. Because of his master's ascension tribulation, the sea was a little different from usual and the waves would be bigger. However, it was rare to see a wave that was 7 or 8 meters high. Because of her words, they looked at the surface of the sea. Indeed, they saw a wave surging on the surface of the sea. Accompanied by the whistling of the sea wind, it surged violently towards the shore. The momentum was so terrifying that it caused their expressions to become serious. If the wave hit them, Fengjiu, who was sitting on the rock, would be affected as well. However, just as this thought flashed through their minds, they saw a loud crack in the sky. A bolt of lightning struck down, and, at the same time, a destructive bolt of lightning struck down towards Fengjiu. No one noticed that Fengjiu, who was surrounded by lightning, threw a pill in her mouth when the dazzling bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. At the same time, she turned her hand, and an ancient mirror appeared in her palm. The momentum and pressure of the lightning and thunder struck down on Fengjiu's body. At that moment, there seemed to be 4 different auras faintly appearing between the lightning and the lightning. The 4 different auras transformed into the shape of dragons, which roared and rushed towards Fengjiu. The destructive aura of death also struck down at that moment. Boom! It was a loud bang that shook the 9 heavens. The whole world seemed to be trembling, and the land of the East Sea spiritual region was shaking. Some of the ground even cracked because it couldn't withstand the terrifying pressure. When the lightning and thunder mixed with the 4 destructive auras struck down on Fengjiu's body, a strong and dazzling light burst out from her body like the sun. There seemed to be a faint cracking sound, like the sound of a mirror shattering. "Master! Xiaojiu!" Everyone couldn't help but cry out in alarm. The destructive aura of death was too powerful, and the dazzling light was too dazzling. As a result, the place where she stood was filled with dazzling light. No one could see her at all. Mother, mother, mother! On Cloud Sky Mountain, the three children shouted with red eyes. Three pairs of eyes stared intently at the image. However, in the next moment, the image that they were staring at seemed to have been disturbed by something and disappeared before their eyes. Mother! Boo-hoo! Big brother, I can't see mother, I can't see mother. Chapter 48:11. Howard and Mu-chun were also anxious. Their eyes turned red when they saw the disappearing image. Why did it disappear? Why can't we see it? Master, master! The two of them hurriedly shouted. Their voices, which carried the aura of spiritual power, spread throughout the entire Cloud Sky Mountain with anxiety and panic. The Qing Emperor, who was in the clouds of Cloud Sky Mountain, heard their voices and knew why they were so anxious. However, he was also very surprised. At this moment, he could not see Fengjiu's situation and could not divert his attention to respond to his three disciples at this moment. He focused his mind and used his divine sense to explore the immortal realm again. However, he was shocked and quickly retracted his divine sense. In the East Sea spiritual region, in the dazzling light of the sun, for powerful airflows and pressure visible to the naked eye were refracted from the light and attacked the 9 heavens above. They were so fast and powerful that they were as terrifying as the 4 destructive auras that struck Fengjiu. In the sky above the celestial realm, the 4 emperors were looking down to see if Fengjiu had been annihilated. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, a torrential stream of air suddenly attacked the 4 of them. Because the 4 auras were familiar to them, they were unable to react or dodge in time. Just like that, they were sent flying by the 4 streams of air. Whoosh! Bang! The 4 powerful airflows cut through the air and landed on the 4 great emperors. Even though the 4 of them were powerful, they were still sent flying. The moment they spat out blood, their figures flew hundreds of meters away. After spinning a few times in the air, they fell down. Screams and exclamations came from the 4 of them. However, the 4 of them fell down from the clouds due to the heavy impact and disappeared in a short while. The only thing that could be seen was that the 4 of them seemed to be seriously injured. The Qing Emperor of Cloud Sky Mountain saw this scene. And Mu-chun, who was in the immortal abode, also saw this scene. After being stunned for a moment, the 2 of them smiled. The former was surprised and expectant, while the latter was relieved and relieved at the same time. In the Spirit Sea region, the dark clouds that shrouded the entire sky dispersed under the dazzling light. The aura of death and destruction in the air, as well as the powerful airflow and pressure, all disappeared without a trace as the light gradually dispersed. Even the 7 or 8 meter high waves on the sea disappeared in an instant, only splashing a layer of water. The oppressive aura dispersed, and what appeared was the moving celestial music that came from the blue sky and the immortal light path that shone down from the 9 heavens. The 7-colored rainbow stretched across the sea and extended to the large rock that Fengjiu was on. The immortal light appeared. She slowly opened her eyes. Her clear eyes shined brightly as she looked at the celestial path that had appeared in the sky. She stood up against the wind. Chapter 48:12. Master, Xiaojiu, Ajiu, Du Fan, Guan Shilin, and the rest looked at this scene with tears of excitement in their eyes. They shouted loudly and waved at Fengjiu, who was standing against the wind. After more than 20 days of anxiety, they could finally put down their worries at this moment. At this moment, there was only excitement and joy in everyone's hearts. She had finally made it through. She was finally going to ascend to the 9 heavens. From the moment the last bolt of lightning struck, she possessed a body of celestial bones and an unparalleled lifespan that was as long as the heavens and the earth. Looking at the red figure who was standing against the wind and shrouded in holy light and heavenly music, everyone's eyes were filled with pride. That was their master, that was their family. After hearing their voices, Fengjiu slowly turned around. Her red dress drew a beautiful arc as she turned around. After she turned around, The red dress also fluttered in the wind, creating a circle of enchanting petals. Amidst the holy light, her figure gradually flew up and her feet left the ground. She stood there quietly. When her quiet gaze fell on the familiar faces, there was a trace of gentleness in it. A beautiful smile bloomed on her peerless face. "Take care of my family for me. I'm leaving, but I'll be back." Her voice came from the sky. Her voice was soft, but it contained a firm conviction and clearly entered everyone's ears. "Don't worry, Master. Your subordinates will definitely not disappoint Master's trust," Du Fan and the rest said in unison. They cupped their fists and bowed, kneeling on one knee. Each of them raised their heads and watched as their master gradually disappeared into the distance. "Agio, we'll wait for you to come back. You have to take care of yourself. You must be well." Wanyan Qianhua shouted loudly and waved at Fengjiu. "Xiaojiu, you have to take care of yourself. You have us at home, don't worry." Guan Shilin also shouted loudly and waved at her. He watched as her figure gradually moved towards the rainbow bridge in the holy light until she reached the 7-colored clouds in the sky. When the heavenly music in the sky gradually dissipated, the heavenly aura in the air gradually dissipated, and the holy light gradually disappeared. The 7-colored path in the sky also disappeared without a trace, along with the dazzling red figure. Seeing her ascend, Wanyan Qianhua, Guan Shilin, and the rest retracted their gazes and looked at each other. Guan Shilin grinned and said in a clear voice, "I'm going back to the Feng family's mansion to tell grandfather and the others this good news. They'll be very happy to hear this news. Hearing this, we'll go back with you to see them. Speaking, I haven't seen them for a long time. Now, there's no need to worry about her. Now that Xiao has successfully ascending, there's nothing to worry about her. We'll go back with you." "Okay," Guan Shilin responded and looked at Du Fan and the others. He wondered what arrangements Xiaojiu made for them before she left. Du Fan and the others had already stood up. Hearing their words, Du Fan and the others discussed for a while before walking over. Chapter 48:13. Seeing this, Guan Shilin nodded and said, "Well, you don't have to worry about the old residents. Just do as Xiaojiu told you before he ascended." "We know," they said, and then cupped their hands to Guan Shilin, Wanyan Qianhua, and Jun Jushang. "Please send our greetings and congratulations to Old Master and the others. If there is anything that needs to be solved, just send us a message and we will deal with it." Congratulations. The sovereigns who had been watching Fengjiu's ascension walked over with smiles on their faces and cupped their hands to congratulate them. The South Chung sovereign's face was full of smiles, and his tone was kind and amiable. He said to Guan Shilin and the others, "The ghost doctor has finally ascended. This is really a joyous occasion. We were lucky enough to see the ghost doctor's ascension, and we are even more shocked and excited. After a few days, we will definitely bring congratulatory gifts and visit Old Master and the others at the Feng family's old residence." Guan Shilin cupped his hands and returned the greeting. He smiled and said, "Okay, I will definitely report to my adoptive father and the others when I return. We will wait for your arrival." After exchanging a few pleasantries, the sovereigns left first. Guan Shilin, Du Fan, and the others arranged for the Phoenix Guards to guard the sea area and then went to the spaceship. At the same time, in Cloud Sky Mountain, Qing Emperor was walking on the wind with his hands clasped behind his back. When he saw how and Mu Chun, who were so anxious that their eyes were red, as well as who was crying due to worry, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he smiled. "Why are you crying? Your mother's ascension is a joyous occasion, isn't it?" Hearing his voice and seeing him come back, the 3 children hurriedly ran toward him. "Master, Er's eyes were still tearing, and she was crying very sadly. When she saw him, she threw herself at him and cried loudly, 'Master, my mother can't see her. We can't see her. Master, our mother.'" How and Mu Chun also surrounded him, looking at him anxiously and worriedly. But before they could finish, he interrupted them. "All right, there's no need to say any more. There's no need to cry. Your mother is fine and has successfully ascended." Seeing their worried and anxious expressions, and seeing his little disciple crying so much, he raised his hand and waved it. The image that had disappeared reappeared in front of them. Ah, it's Mother. Ewer hastily wiped her tears, fearing that tears would cloud her eyes and make her unable to see her mother's appearance. Mother has successfully ascended, Howard and Mu-chan said at the same time. Their faces were full of surprise and excitement. Especially when they saw their mother slowly ascending, they were even more excited. It's really Mother. Little sister, quickly look. Mu-chan pulled Yuer's hand, and his little face was filled with joy. Mother, Mother, Yuer shouted and tiptoed, wanting to get closer to her mother. The Qing Emperor looked at Fengjiu in the image, then glanced at his 3 disciples and said, "She has successfully ascended. Can you be relieved this time?" Not only did Fengjiu successfully ascend, but he also used some kind of treasure to seriously injure the 4 great emperors. Even he didn't dare to release his divine sense to investigate at that moment, which was enough to show how powerful that treasure was. Chapter 48:14. It's fine as long as Mother is fine. Howard smiled. Because of this smile, his little face looked a lot more lively. He had the vitality and happiness that people of his age should have. Shifu, can we go see Mother? Mu-chan asked, looking at their Shifu. Master, take us to see Mother. We miss Mother so much. Yuer also said, pulling on their master's sleeve. Emperor Qin glanced at them and said, "Have you forgotten what I told you? Even if your mother ascends, you can't go see her, and you can't let others know about your relationship with her. Otherwise, if her enemies can't do anything to her, they will think of ways to do something to you and use you to threaten her." When he saw their disappointed expressions, he clasped his hands behind his back and sighed softly. Master is doing this for your own good. You'd better focus on your cultivation. With that, he flicked his sleeve and erased the image. Master! Yuer cried out in alarm when she saw that the image of their mother was wiped away by her master. She looked up at him with a red face. Emperor Qing turned around and walked back to his cave. He said indifferently, "Go back and cultivate. It's fine as long as you know that your mother is fine. As for the rest, it's not something you can worry about right now." Knowing that their master always meant what he said, the 3 of them didn't ask for any more help. They could only walk back with a lonely expression. At Mo Chen's immortal mansion, after seeing that Fengjiu had successfully ascended, he didn't pay any more attention to it. No matter what, now that she had successfully ascended, he didn't need to worry about other things. Fengjiu ascended. Somewhere in the immortal realm, celestial music reverberated in the sky. A celestial island appeared, and a majestic palace was completed amidst the light. Her immortal mansion was also the same as Mo Chen's immortal mansion a year ago. Only the palace and environment were slightly different. However, it was still in the same immortal mansion. Hundreds of flowers bloomed on the island. Hundreds of fruits grew on the branches. Red-crowned cranes flew, and magpies sang happily. A 7-colored rainbow bridge spanned across the immortal island, adding a dazzling scenery to this fairyland-like island where hundreds of flowers were blooming. However, compared to Mo Chen's immortal abode, which was bustling with activity when the monarchs came to present gifts, Fengjiu's immortal abode was cold and cheerless. Not a single person came to congratulate or present gifts. What she didn't know was that the sovereigns under her jurisdiction had long heard of the enmity between the 4 great emperors and her, and that they wanted to kill her. Therefore, even though she had become a great emperor in this world, those sovereigns didn't dare to visit her, for fear that they would offend the other 4 great emperors if they congratulated this newly ascended great emperor. Compared to this, Fengjiu didn't care much. At this time, her figure landed on the rainbow bridge and stood on it, looking at the private island that belonged to her. It could only be said that this was an island that stretched as far as the eye could see. In addition to her newly built immortal residence, there were several mountains that reached into the clouds behind the palace, layer upon layer, and a forest that seemed to have no end. Chapter 48:15. It's as beautiful as a fairyland. This must be the place they're talking about, right? She murmured softly. She was in a very good mood. After going through so many difficulties, She had finally successfully ascended to immortality. At this moment, she was naturally overjoyed. In this place, on this island that was as beautiful as a fairyland, how she wished that her husband and her children could be by her side at this moment. They could share her joy and share this fairyland. Mose, if only you were here too. How great would that be? She said softly. A trace of regret flashed across her heart. But it doesn't matter. I came here first, so I'll take care of this place first. This place will be our home in the future. It will be a place where our family can reunite. A determined light flashed across her eyes. Her clear eyes looked at this fairyland, and a sincere smile appeared on her face. In the next moment, she waved her sleeves, and several rays of light flew out. Some rose into the air and circled in the sky, while others leaped and landed steadily on the ground. Master! 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 Joyful and excited voices rang out from Fengjiu's contracted beasts. When the fire phoenix rose into the air, it revealed its true form with a flash of light. The huge figure of the fire phoenix soared in the sky. Its flaming wings flapped, and it raised its head. A phoenix cry reverberated in the sky. It penetrated deep into the clouds and reverberated in the sky, reaching every corner of the island below. In that instant, in the endless forest, when the beasts heard the phoenix cry from the ancient mythical beast, they all lowered their bodies and knelt down. Their mouths emitted cries, and they didn't even dare to raise their heads. At this moment, due to the appearance of the fire phoenix, the beasts in the forest clearly knew that such a powerful ancient divine beast was guarding this island. When Tun Yin, Lao Bai, and the other contracted beast saw the fire phoenix hovering in the sky and raising its head to chirp, they knew what it was trying to do. Therefore, they only glanced at it in the sky before looking around happily. They jumped up and scurried around the area, then returned to the bottom of the rainbow bridge to congratulate their master. Fengjiu stood on the rainbow immortal bridge, facing the wind. She looked into the distance with a faint smile on her lips. She watched as the immortal crane transformed into an immortal servant, as well as the flower immortal and the others transformed from the flowers. They leisurely walked over behind Old White and the other contracted beasts. When they reached the bottom of the rainbow immortal bridge, they bowed respectfully. Congratulations to the Phoenix Master for ascending and becoming an immortal. Gentle voices of congratulations sounded from their mouths, and they were nothing more than some auspicious words of congratulations for her ascension. Fengjiu raised his hand, and some medicinal pills flew into their hands. He said slowly, "All right, you guys can leave first. Go and prepare a place to rest. Also, I need some information. You guys are responsible for finding out for me." Her gaze landed on the 4 immortal servants transformed from the cranes. When the 4 immortal servants heard her words, they didn't hesitate and respectfully replied, "Yes, we will follow the Phoenix Master's orders." Chapter 48:16. The fire phoenix flapped her wings and brought Fengjiu to circle above the immortal island, checking the area they occupied and the boundaries they had set up. The 4 great emperors who had been injured by the counterattack had already returned to their respective immortal mansions. Once they returned, they immediately went into seclusion to cultivate. They only instructed their subordinates to be on high alert in case someone attacked them. After one of the great emperors entered his mansion and closed the door, the blood in his chest could no longer be suppressed and spurted out. He staggered backward, holding on to the table and chair as he came to his bed. He leaned against the headboard and gasped for breath. His face was pale as he leaned against the headboard. He took out a pill from his space and swallowed it. After resting for a while, he sat cross-legged to heal his injuries. It was not until 2 days later that he opened his eyes. "Fengjiu, how could he injure me to this extent?" He said hatefully, but in his heart he also knew that the powerful air current that had injured him was actually the air current that they had used to attack Fengjiu. However, for some reason, their attack had been reflected back at them, causing them to be seriously injured. What kind of treasure is that? How could it reflect their attacks? He muttered. He couldn't understand. How could there be such a powerful treasure in the lower immortal realm? And it had been obtained by Fengjiu. Thinking of the other three who had also suffered from the same backlash, he thought for a while, then got up and walked out of the room. Right now, he was afraid that he could not go into seclusion to regulate his breathing and heal his injuries. This attack had injured them too severely. Even if they had taken medicinal pills to recuperate for 2 days, they could only get out of bed and walk around. If they were to really use their chi to attack, it was impossible for them to do so in their current physical condition, especially when he had just checked that he only had 30% of his strength left. If Feng Jiu were to attack him at this time, he would definitely die. Therefore, while Feng Jiu had just ascended, he had to do something to obstruct her so that she would not have the chance to seek revenge. Therefore, after leaving the room, he ordered someone to send a message to the immortal monarchs, immortal elders, and monarchs in the area under his control, asking them to deal with the newly ascended Great Emperor. At the same time, he personally sent a message to the other 3 Great Emperors, informing them of his plans. At the same time, he also asked them to make preparations to unite the sovereigns and immortal monarchs under his jurisdiction to launch a crusade against Feng Jiu. After all, with the strength of the sovereigns, it was impossible to deal with the newly ascended Great Emperor Feng Jiu. If they were asked to deal with him, it was very likely that they would retreat because they had a fight. Therefore, he planned to let the sovereigns and the various sects and clans under the jurisdiction of the 4 great emperors work together to cut off the resources in the area under Feng Jiu's jurisdiction. Almost as soon as he gave the order, the sovereigns anxiously called for a meeting to discuss this matter. At the same time, Imo Chun, who had received the news from the sovereign below, only smiled and told them not to get involved in this matter. After instructing the Immortal Mansion's immortal maidservant to guard the Immortal Mansion, he flicked his sleeves and flew out of the Immortal Island alone into the clouds. Chapter 48:17. If it was in the past, it would take at least 2 days to travel from the Immortal Island he belonged to the Immortal Island on the other side of the sky. After becoming the great emperors of this world, they had many immortal bodies, and one of them was called shrinking Earth into inches. It took him half a day to arrive at Feng Jiu's floating island in the sky. He stood in the clouds and looked at the immortal island in front of him, which was covered in clouds. He could faintly see the corner of the magnificent palace and the faintly discernible mountain peak. He walked closer to take a look. As expected, there was a barrier around the immortal island. He smiled faintly and went around to the main entrance. When he arrived at the entrance, he called out, "Agio, it's me." His voice was slow and gentle, but it contained a strong aura of spiritual power. It clearly passed through the clouds and the barrier and entered Feng Jiu's ears. Hearing Imo Chen's voice, Feng Jiu's eyes lit up. She immediately got up and walked outside. Because it was Imo Chen, she personally went to the entrance and opened the barrier to invite him in. "Imo Chen, why are you here?" Feng Jiu looked at him, who was dressed in white and looked like an immortal, and asked with a smile. Imo Chen walked in and followed her for a while. Only then did she get a good look at the interior of the building. With a gentle smile on his face, he said softly, "I should have come to congratulate you 2 days ago when you ascended. However, I thought that since you just ascended, there would be many people congratulating you, so I postponed it for 2 days." As he spoke, he paused and looked at her, saying, "I see that your place is even bigger than my immortal island, and the environment is very charming." His gaze fell on a rainbow bridge that spanned the entire immortal island not far away, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. That rainbow bridge didn't disappear. Hearing his words, Feng Jiu chuckled and said, "That rainbow bridge won't disappear. It can be walked on. It appeared after you ascended." As she spoke, she strolled with him and said, "Since the completion of my immortal abode, you are the only guest who has come. I really haven't seen anyone else." "Oh." Imo Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at her. "Do you know the reason?" "Yes, it's the doing of the 4 great emperors," she said slowly, looking at the road ahead. Walking slowly, she said carelessly, "The 4 great emperors joined forces to deal with me. They even reached their hands into my territory and threatened the sovereigns and sects under my jurisdiction. They are probably afraid of the 4 great emperors. After all, They are authoritative figures in the upper immortal realm. How much do they know about a newly ascended great emperor like me? Emo-chan smiled when she heard this, and she said, I figure that since you've just ascended into the immortal realm, you wouldn't know much about the exalted immortal realm. So, besides bringing you news, I've also come to tell you the information I've gathered over the past year. The two of them walked to a pavilion and sat down. Two immortal servants served tea and left, quietly waiting at a place far away. What news did you bring me? Fengjiu asked as she took a sip of tea. I've received news that the four great emperors have given the order to cut off the supply of resources to the area under your jurisdiction. They will probably use other methods to suppress and deal with you in the future. As Emo-chan spoke, she picked up the tea in front of her and took a sip. Chapter 48:18. Emo-chan smiled when he saw that she was not worried at all. Aren't you worried? Worried? What's there to be worried about? Fengjiu replied casually as she played with the teacup in her hand. Currently, none of my subordinates have come looking for me. Naturally, I haven't received any news about this. I'm not in a hurry. Let's wait until they can't hold it in any longer and come looking for me. Furthermore, since they don't respect me, I naturally have to teach them a lesson, don't I? Emo-chan shook his head and chuckled when he heard this. This was indeed her character. Since she was not worried, she would naturally have a solution. Therefore, he did not continue on this topic. Instead, he asked, how are you going to deal with the four sovereigns? Fengjiu played with the teacup as the corners of her lips curled up into a smile. However, her eyes were cold, and there was even a cold glint in them. The four of them have suffered heavy injuries. It's impossible for them to recover in a short period of time. Now that I've just ascended, I'm not familiar with this world yet. Therefore, I'll let them live for a few more days. Sooner or later, I'll settle this score with the four of them. Now that the four of them have been injured by their own strength, they would definitely go into closed-door cultivation because they were worried that she would come looking for them. Even if she went looking for them, they might not necessarily be hiding in their immortal abodes. Therefore, it was better to put this matter aside and deal with the matter at hand first. Furthermore, she needed to understand what kind of existence the forces in the upper immortal realm were. It's right that you didn't make a sudden move. The four great emperors have existed for too long. Their forces are definitely not as simple as they appear on the surface. Furthermore, some of the other great emperors have friendly relations with them. Furthermore, even if you went looking for them, I'm afraid they wouldn't be in their immortal abodes. Emo-chan glanced at her as he spoke. He then took out some information from a space and handed it to her. This is some information that I've collected over the past year. Before we ascended, there are already 10 great emperors on this list. However, some of them are in seclusion and don't appear easily. Therefore, the information we can get is limited. Fengjiu took the information and flipped through it. She smiled and said, "Thank you. This information is very useful to me." Emo-chan smiled and said, "The four great emperors who want to deal with you are full of ambition. According to what I know, they're afraid of the prophecy about you becoming the Lord of the heavens and earth, so they want to deal with you. As for the others, they've been in seclusion for many years." Hearing his words, Fengjiu didn't mind at first. Instead, she flipped through the information in the book. However, when she heard that he had taken in 3 disciples, her hand that was flipping through the information stopped. She raised her head and looked at Emo-chan, waiting for him to finish speaking. After he finished, she couldn't help but smile and said, "Now that you mention it, I know who you're talking about." Chapter 48:19. Fengjiu chuckled and said, "Yes, I know him. I even know his 3 disciples." Looking at her expression and the smile on her face, a thought flashed across his mind. He said in surprise, "Could it be her 3 children?" Fengjiu nodded and smiled. "It's a long story, but it's definitely them." Seeing this, Emo-chan smiled. "I know." How perceptive was he? As long as she said it, he would naturally be able to guess. He just did not know how she knew the Qing Emperor. How did the 3 children become the Qing Emperor's disciples? "That's right, I have something to ask you." Emo-chan said. What is it? Fengjiu looked at him and asked. On the day of your immortal ascension, where did the treasure that injured the 4 great emperors come from? What kind of treasure is it? How could it be so powerful? After all, they were so far away. Moreover, what kind of people were the 4 great emperors? To think that such a person could be injured, and in such an unguarded situation at that. Fengjiu did not expect him to ask about this. After being stunned for a moment, she chuckled. It's a mirror. However, it's not an ordinary mirror. Many years ago, she told him in detail about how the monkey lured her to the cave and how she obtained a mirror that could open a passage to another world. After hearing her words, Emo-chan was slightly surprised. You obtained it like that? I didn't expect it to be such an incredible treasure. I'm afraid it's not an ordinary item. Actually, I didn't expect it to be so effective either. Unfortunately, the mirror shattered after reflecting the 4 great emperors' attacks. When I ascended, I saw that it had already been shattered into pieces, she said with some pity. Fortunately, you had that treasure with you back then. Otherwise, you might not have been able to endure the attacks of the 4 great emperors. Emo-chan shook her head and said slowly, I can only say that all of this was predestined, now that I've successfully ascended, but Mo-ze. She sighed softly. Thinking about Mo-ze, who was still in the spirit sea of the East Sea, her heart felt heavy. She did not know when he would wake up. Who knew when he would ascend? She could only hope that the power of the green lotus she had given him at that time would be of help to him. Hearing her mention Mo-ze, Emo-chan was reminded of his master. Therefore, his expression softened as he said, Don't worry. Heaven helps the worthy. What's more, my master risked his life to give him a chance to live, so he won't die so easily. It's only a matter of time before he wakes up and ascends. One day, he will come here to reunite with you. Yes, Fengjiu replied, then looked at Emo-chan and said, I'm sorry. Because of Mo-ze, your master lost his life. Emo-chan shook his head and said, Everything is fated. Moreover, my master has already seen through life and death. Every decision he makes must have his reasons. Actually, there was one more thing that he did not tell her. Because his master had revealed too many secrets of heaven, his lifespan had been reduced, and he was fated to face this calamity. He could not blame anyone for this. The two of them chatted in the pavilion. Emo-chan told Fengjiu about the immortal realm in detail, helping her understand everything about the immortal realm in the shortest time possible. At the bottom of the spirit sea of the East Sea, an endless stream of spiritual energy was madly surging into the boundary. Everything was absorbed into the body of the sleeping Xinyuanmos. Chapter 48:20. Guemo and Wei Feng were guarding the eastern sea. When they saw the storm on the surface of the sea sweep up, they couldn't help but exchange glances with each other, and then they raised their energy and flew out of the flying ship to arrive on the surface of the sea to take a look. The aura of spirit energy is surging violently at the bottom of the sea. Could it be that the Yama Lord? Wei Feng looked at Guemo with a trace of surprise on his face. His divine sense spread out and noticed that the spirit energy at the bottom of the sea was surging violently toward a certain place. Yet he was unable to detect where the Yama Lord was. It was probably the barrier that their master had set up that blocked the detection of his divine sense. Guemo pondered and said, Master said that the Yama Lord might wake up, but shouldn't be now. According to what Master said, the Yama Lord probably won't wake up until 3 to 5 years later. The fluctuations in the sea today are probably a sign that the Yama Lord's condition is gradually improving. Wei Feng said, Since it's like that, then let's observe for 2 days and see what exactly is going on. Okay, Guemo responded. Seeing that there were no other strange phenomena on the surface of the sea other than the waves and the surging of spiritual energy, the two of them headed towards the flying ship first. I wonder how Master is after ascending. Did she encounter any trouble? Wei Feng couldn't help but look towards the sky as he spoke. Because of Master's ascension, even their communication jade with Master had been cut off. Even if they wanted to know about Master, they had no way of finding out. Don't worry. Even if Master goes to the celestial world alone, she'll definitely take good care of herself. Even if she encounters trouble, with Master's ability and methods. Could it be that you're worried that she won't be able to deal with it? Guillermo revealed a wisp of a smile and said, "We only need to properly carry out the task of guarding Master here. Master said that she'll definitely return." "Right. Didn't I hear from Du Fan that Hui Lang and Ying Yi are coming over? Why haven't they arrived yet?" Wei Feng asked as he recalled the two people he hadn't seen for a long time. It's not like you don't know that ever since the Yama Lord's accident, the two of them have taken over the Yama Lord's work. In addition, the world under the Yama Lord is in turmoil because of the Yama Lord situation. With so many things requiring their attention, how can they possibly leave? Guillermo descended onto the flying ship and called 2 Phoenix guards to patrol the surface of the sea, whereas he and Wei Feng walked to the small table at the bow of the ship and sat down. He said they weren't even able to rush over when Master ascended, so it's obvious how busy they are. Wei Feng nodded. After he sat down, he poured 2 cups of wine and said, "Right, with the Yama Lord's current situation and Master isn't here, if they don't keep an eye on it, then it'll probably fall into chaos." The two of them had a few drinks on the spaceship and chatted. Time passed unknowingly, the celestial world. After Fengjiu sent off Mo Chun, he instructed Fire Phoenix, Senior White, and the other contracted beast to guard the celestial world while he left with Tun Yin. He intended to take a stroll in the territory she was in charge of. Dressed in red, she was as dazzling as the sun. Even if she restrained her pressure and cultivation, her outstanding temperament and peerless elegance still attracted the attention of everyone wherever she went. Chapter 48:21. However, the people here were afraid of the 4 great emperors. On the day of her ascension, not a single sovereign or immortal elder came to the island to congratulate her. Even though she did not take those people seriously, she could not allow them to look down on her. Today, she left her residence to take a look at her territory. Secondly, she wanted to see how they would deal with the problem of cutting off their supply of resources. Furthermore, there were too few people in her immortal residence, especially a lack of kitchen maids. Therefore, she wanted to bring a few people back with her. However, not long after she entered the city, she heard a commotion in front of her as she walked on the street. "What's going on? Why did the price of the spiritual rice increase so much? This is not normal." A middle-aged man who looked like a housekeeper said. He frowned and shouted, "It's not the first time our Gua family has dealt with you. The price of the spiritual rice has increased so much. You should give us an explanation." "Housekeeper Gua, the price of the spiritual rice is not up to us. It's my master. We have no choice." The shopkeeper in the shop sighed helplessly. Could it be that what I heard is true? A cultivator next to him said in surprise. "What is true?" Someone next to him asked. "Don't you know? I heard a rogue cultivator friend say that someone above gave the order to cut off the supply of resources in our territory. I'm afraid that not long after, the price of the spiritual rice will not only increase, but it will also be difficult to find a single grain." The cultivator said with a serious expression. "This can't be." Someone next to him said in shock. "Why can't it be? It's not like you don't know that not long ago, our territory was divided under the jurisdiction of the newly ascended Great Emperor. It's said that the newly ascended Great Emperor is a woman who ascended from the lower immortal world. Think about it. How can a woman who ascended from the lower immortal world compete with the other great emperors?" The cultivator said. Seeing that everyone was listening curiously, he continued, "Moreover, it is said that this empress has a grudge with the other 4 great emperors. That's why such a thing happened. There's one more thing you must not know. I heard that other places are wantonly absorbing powerful families. I'm afraid that in a few years, there won't be many powerful people left in the territory under our empress's jurisdiction." "How dare you? Who are you? How dare you bewitch people here?" A delicate voice suddenly shouted, giving everyone a fright. The cultivator who spoke was even more shocked. He instinctively took a few steps back and looked for the voice. He found that it was a little girl of about 5 years old. "She gave me a fright." "So it's a little girl?" The cultivator exhaled softly and calmed down. He looked at her from the corner of his eye and said coldly, "Little girl, you're quite imposing, but didn't your parents teach you not to be rude to your elders? Also, You're not bewitching people. You're just bewitching people with your lies. Chapter 48:22. In an inconspicuous corner, Feng Jiu was leaning against the wall. When he saw this scene and the little girl, he couldn't help but reveal a smile. Her smile was like a blossoming flower, like a spring breeze, and like a feather gently brushing across one's heart, causing those who were secretly looking at her to be involuntarily stunned. They foolishly stared at that beautiful face and that enchanting smile that bloomed at the corner of the beauty's lips. How could there be such a beauty in this world? Every frown and smile of hers could move one's heart and soul. Her eyes were even more enchanting, causing people to be uncontrollably captivated by her peerlessly beautiful face. Little girl, you need to be taught a lesson. The cultivator's face turned slightly red. He wanted to take a step forward to scare her, but he was stopped by someone next to him. I say, it's best if you don't touch her. This is the Shu family's most favored young miss. Steward Gua glanced at the cultivator and said, if she loses a single hair, you won't be able to leave this city alive. The cultivator's heart shook when he heard this. He quickly stopped, and his face turned pale. Humph. When I go back, I'm going to tell grandfather that you're trying to confuse people with your lies. Our family won't casually move. Our family has lived here for generations. We won't move. The little girl's tender voice had the softness of a little girl and was very pleasing to the ear. Because the cultivator knew that this little girl was the young miss of the Shu clan, he didn't dare to say anything more. Instead, he said, I won't bicker with a little girl like you. With that, he flicked his sleeve and left the crowd. Hee, 11th young miss, do you still remember me? Steward Gul walked up with a smile and asked, why are you here alone? Your entourage? I remember, your big sister was steward. The little girl smiled and two sweet little dimples appeared on her little face. Her voice was soft as she said, I came out with my second brother, but he saw big sister Gua and couldn't move, so I snuck away. Hearing this, Steward Gua was startled and asked, you're my young miss? Yes. The little girl nodded and pointed behind her, they're picking things from the treasure shop over there. Hearing this, Steward Gua quickly said, why don't 11th young miss come with us? It's not safe for you to be alone. It's very safe. My second brother often says that I look very safe. Also, many people in the city know me, so no one will hit me, she said with a smile. Feng Jiu, who was in the corner, couldn't help but burst out laughing when she heard her words. Perhaps because she heard the laughter, the little girl's chubby and cute little face wrinkled as she asked, who's laughing at me? She followed the voice and saw Feng Jiu, who was dressed in red, leaning against the corner of the wall. Wow! Her eyes widened, and her long eyelashes fluttered as she stared at Feng Jiu. At this time, the surrounding people also noticed the beautiful woman in red at the corner of the wall. For a moment, they were all stunned. Chapter 48:23. However, they had never seen someone like this woman who had the essence of heaven and earth. Not only was she beautiful, but her aura was also outstanding, especially with her red dress. It was hard for people to take their eyes off her. There were thousands of beauties, but each had a different style. Even though they had seen many beauties in the cultivation world, they had to admit that the beauty of this woman in red was above all the beauties in the world. She was like a bright moon in the sky. When others were around her, no matter how dazzling they could only shine like stars. When Feng Jiu saw that everyone was staring at her, her beautiful brows furrowed slightly, and the smile on her lips disappeared. She glanced at the cute little girl with baby fat and smiled at her, then turned to leave. Seeing the little girl, she couldn't help thinking of her daughter, Yu, who was also so cute. However, she hadn't seen them for a long time. She didn't know if they were used to following Emperor Qing. How much taller had they grown now? She wanted to see them, but she suppressed this idea as soon as it arose. Now was not the right time, she thought as she walked. After walking for a distance, she suddenly stopped and looked at the little girl beside her. She stopped when she stopped and looked at the little girl who was looking up at her with her chubby little face. Little girl, why are you following me? Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows and asked, sister, you are so beautiful. This is the first time Exent has met someone as beautiful as you. She smiled sweetly, and with her smile, two cute little dimples appeared on her round little face. Without waiting for Fengjiu to speak, she moved closer to Fengjiu with small steps. She was so close that she was almost beside Fengjiu. Fengjiu looked at her, raised her eyebrows, and didn't say anything. She wanted to see what she wanted to do. My grandfather said that near ink is black, near vermilion will become red. Then if I get closer to you, will I become like you? Her soft words were naive, and Fengjiu couldn't help laughing. What kind of family was the Shu family? How did they teach such a strange and cute little girl? Fengjiu smiled, squatted down, and said, Me, I'm old enough to be your mother, so you can't call me sister, but you can call me aunt. Also, even if you follow me and get close to me, you won't become like me. However, you're already very good like this. You're very cute and very lucky. She reached out and gently pinched the little girl's chubby little face and chuckled. You are still young now. When you grow up, you will slowly become more beautiful. The little girl rolled her eyes and looked down at the hand that was pinching her little face. She blinked and asked, Then, beautiful aunt, when XR grows up in the future, will I become like beautiful aunt? Fengjiu's little girl, Fengjiuxu's eyes. You look like your father and mother, she fun. The little girl, her little, in the next moment, her little frown, her little girl. And then actually her head raised her head. Woo-woo. I don't want to be like my father. Woo-woo. I don't want to. Chapter 48:24. All right. Don't cry anymore. You won't look good if you keep crying. She hurriedly coaxed him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Hearing that he wouldn't look good if he kept crying, the little one hurriedly stopped and wiped away his tears. He looked at her pitifully and asked curiously, Beautiful aunt, do you have children? Are your children the same? Are they very good-looking? Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Thinking of her two little darlings, her gaze softened. Yes, they're a little older than you. They're twins and look exactly the same. They're both very good-looking. Wow, they look exactly the same? What do they look like? She exclaimed curiously. Exener has never seen two people who look exactly the same. Fengjiu smiled and rubbed her hair, saying, All right, you should go back quickly. Don't let your family worry. Beautiful aunt, can you send me home? I'll ask my grandfather to treat you to a meal. She looked up at her face full of hope. Fengjiu wanted to refuse, but seeing this little one looking at her expectantly, and the person who was called Butler was following behind, she thought for a moment, then said, I'll send you back. I'll leave after you get home. Hee, beautiful aunt, come with me. I'll take you home. She automatically ignored the last sentence and held Fengjiu's hand as they walked, saying, I live in a big courtyard with my grandfather. Usually, only my brothers come to the courtyard to play with me. Let me tell you, my grandfather is very powerful. He knows everything. He even knows how to make grasshoppers from grass for me. Fengjiu listened quietly, a smile on her lips. Hearing her mention her grandfather, she also thought of her grandfather. Now that she had ascended to this place alone, she might not be able to see them for a long time in the future. Although she was reluctant to part with them, she knew that they were all well, and that was enough. At the same time, the Shu residence's guards hurried over and found their family's second young master in the shop. Second young master, go back quickly. Something happened at home. Second young master, Shu, had just bought a jade hairpin for his sweetheart and was chatting with her. When he heard the guard's anxious words, he couldn't help but be startled, asking, What happened at home? Someone came to seek revenge, and there are quite a few strong cultivators. Second young master, bring little miss back quickly. As the guard spoke, he looked around but couldn't see the little figure. He couldn't help but ask, Second young master, where's little miss? That was the pearl in the hands of the Shu family's masters. Xin, isn't Xener here? He was shocked. Only now did he remember his little sister. He looked around, but he didn't see the little girl's figure. His handsome face was full of anxiety. She was here just now. How did she disappear? The Guo family's fourth young mistress said as she turned to the servants beside her, Hurry up and help me find Xener. Young miss, second young master. Housekeeper Guo walked in and said, I saw 11th young miss on the street just now. She left with a lady in red. I was worried that 11th young miss would be in danger, so I followed her for a while. Later, I saw little miss leading that lady to the shoe residence, so I came to fetch my young miss.